Welcome. I hope you've had a pleasant day. Now it's time to get cozy and relaxed as we begin our journey with the leopard. The sun is not up yet, but the heat has already clocked in for work. It is the heart of the dry season, and the savanna feels stretched thin. A single acacia tree stands alone against the pale horizon. It offers shade that feels more theoretical than actual. High in its thorny branches, a leopard sits motionless. Her spotted coat blends perfectly with the dappled shadows cast by the thorny branches above. She is 5 years old in her prime, and she has just dragged the carcass of an impala up into this tree with a strength that seems impossible for an animal of her size. The impala weighs nearly as much as she does, yet she hauled it 15 feet off the ground in seconds, her muscles working beneath her fur like coiled springs, releasing energy in perfect coordination. Now she rests, her amber eyes half closed, her breathing slow and measured. Below, a clan of hyenas circles the base of the tree. They linger with unwavering optimism, staring up at a meal they absolutely cannot reach. Hope is a major part of the hyena lifestyle, even when physics is very much not on their side. They arrived within minutes of her achievement, drawn by some mysterious instinct that alerts scavengers to opportunity faster than any dinner bell. The leopard ignores them with the kind of practiced indifference that comes from years of dealing with uninvited guests. Her tail hangs down from the branch, twitching occasionally, the only sign that she is even aware of the commotion below. This is Africa's dry season at its most unforgiving, the time when life concentrates around the few remaining water sources, and predators enjoy what amounts to an all-you-can-eat buffet if they are skilled enough. The leopard is very skilled. She has claimed this territory 3 years ago, a stretch of riverine forest and open woodland that covers roughly 8 square miles. It is prime real estate in leopard terms, offering excellent hunting, ample cover, and several sturdy trees perfect for storing food away from competitors who lack her climbing abilities. The dry season began 4 months ago, back in May, when the last rains fell and the grass was still green. Since then, the landscape has transformed from a verdant paradise into something resembling a particularly aggressive oven set to low heat for extended periods. The river that runs through her territory has narrowed to a series of disconnected pools, each one shrinking daily under the relentless sun. Animals that once spread across the grasslands now cluster near these pools, creating concentrations of prey that make hunting almost embarrassingly easy for a patient predator. Almost. The leopard finishes her meal as the sun climbs higher, the heat building in waves that shimmer above the ground. She eats methodically, efficiently, wasting nothing. When she is full, she wedges what remains of the impala into a secure fork higher in the tree, positioning it so that gravity and branch architecture work together to keep it in place. The hyenas below watch this operation with visible frustration, their heads tilted upward at angles that suggest they are contemplating physics problems well beyond their pay grade. One attempts to climb the tree, managing to get approximately 3 feet off the ground before gravity reminds it that hyenas are fundamentally terrestrial creatures. It falls back with a thump and a sound that might be disappointment if hyenas were capable of such nuanced emotions. They definitely are. The leopard descends the opposite side of the tree with fluid grace, her claws gripping bark, her body flowing downward like liquid poured from a height. She lands silently and vanishes into the tall grass before the hyenas even notice she has moved. This is her particular genius, the ability to appear and disappear as if she exists only when she chooses to be seen. She moves through her territory like a ghost with very specific dining preferences, checking territorial markers, investigating scent posts left by neighboring leopards, pausing occasionally to listen to sounds that carry meaning only to her. A kilometer away, near one of the larger remaining pools, a herd of impala grazes nervously in the sparse shade of a grove of fever trees. Their ears swivel constantly, monitoring for danger from every direction. They have good reason to be nervous. The dry season concentrates predators along with prey, and this waterhole attracts lions, hyenas, wild dogs, and of course leopards. The impala have developed a rotation system where individuals take turns drinking while others watch, a democratic approach to hydration that works reasonably well except when it does not. The leopard is not interested in the impala at this particular moment. She has food cached in her tree, enough to last through tomorrow if she is conservative about portions. Instead, she is patrolling the southern boundary of her territory, where a younger female has been making exploratory incursions. The intruder is perhaps 2 years old, recently independent from her mother, searching for a territory of her own. She is smaller than our leopard, less experienced, and frankly making territorial choices that suggest her education in real estate assessment was incomplete. The older leopard finds fresh scrape marks on a fallen log, claw scores in the wood still light in color, made within the last few hours. She investigates thoroughly, reading information from the marks that would mean nothing to most observers, but tells her everything she needs to know about the intruder's size, health, and confidence level. The assessment is not particularly impressive. She adds her own marks directly over the younger leopard's scrapes, her claws cutting deeper, her scent glands leaving a chemical signature that essentially translates to "please reconsider your life choices." Territorial disputes between female leopards rarely end in physical confrontation if both parties are sensible about communication. The older leopard has size, experience, and the advantage of established residency. The younger one has youth, desperation, and very few options given that most suitable territories are already occupied by leopards who are not interested in roommates. They will likely meet eventually, probably near the boundary, and engage in a conversation consisting of hissing, growling, and aggressive posturing that will establish once and for all who gets to stay and who needs to find accommodations elsewhere. But that is future business. For now, the message has been delivered via claw and scent, and the older leopard moves on. She travels to a different tree, this one a massive leadwood that has stood in this spot for perhaps 200 years. Its branches are thick and spreading, its trunk scarred with the claw marks of generations of leopards who have used it as a highway between ground and canopy. She climbs effortlessly, her body designed for vertical movement in ways that make gravity seem like a mild suggestion rather than a fundamental force. At 20 feet up, she settles onto a broad branch and surveys her domain. From this vantage point, she can see across the grassland to the river, can watch the game trails that crisscross her territory, can monitor the movements of prey and competitors alike. A troop of baboons feeds in the distance, their barking calls carrying on the still air. She watches them without particular interest. Baboons are difficult prey, dangerous when cornered, and tend to mob predators with an enthusiasm that borders on religious fervor. They are also incredibly loud about their opinions regarding leopards, which they consider to be somewhere between natural disaster and personal insult. If they spot her, they will raise an alarm that will alert every animal within half a mile, ruining any chance of a quiet afternoon. So she remains motionless, a spotted shadow in dappled light, invisible to casual observation. The heat builds through midday, and the leopard does what all sensible creatures do in such conditions. She sleeps. Not the deep unconscious sleep of perfect safety, but the alert rest of a predator in a dangerous landscape, her ears monitoring sounds, her nose processing scents, her brain maintaining a low level of awareness, even as her body recovers from the morning's exertions. This is the rhythm of dry season life for a leopard. Hunt when opportunity presents itself, rest during the heat, patrol territory in the cooler hours, repeat until the rains return and change the equation entirely. Hours pass. The sun arcs slowly across the sky, painting the savanna in shades of gold that would be beautiful if beauty were something the leopard considered, which it is not. She wakes fully as the temperature begins to drop, the late afternoon bringing a slight breeze that carries information from across her territory. She stretches, extending her front legs, arching her back, her claws emerging and retracting in that satisfied way cats have perfected. Then she descends from the leadwood and begins moving toward the water hole, not to drink, but to hunt. The late afternoon is prime time for ambush predators. Prey animals, having endured the heat of the day, emerge to drink and feed while light remains, their caution dulled slightly by thirst and hunger. The leopard knows this. She has learned through years of observation that the hour before sunset offers the best combination of animal activity and failing light, when prey can still see well enough to feel safe, but not well enough to spot a patient predator in good cover. She approaches the water hole from downwind, using a dry stream bed as a highway that hides her from view. The stream bed winds through tall grass and scattered bush, offering excellent concealment for an animal whose entire hunting strategy revolves around not being seen until it is far too late. She moves slowly, placing each paw with deliberate care, avoiding twigs and dry leaves, her body low to the ground. At 50 meters from the water, she stops and settles into cover behind a termite mound. The water hole spreads before her, perhaps 30 meters across, its surface dark and still. Around its edges, the earth is churned to mud by countless hooves, marked with the tracks of every animal that has drunk here in the past week. The impala herd is present, 20 or so animals scattered along the near shore, some drinking, others watching, all of them nervous in that perpetual state of alert that characterizes prey species in Africa. The leopard waits. Patience is not merely a virtue in her profession, it is the difference between eating and going hungry. She can remain motionless for hours if necessary, her muscles relaxed, her breathing slow, every part of her body conserved for the explosive sprint that will come when opportunity presents itself. An opportunity, as it usually does for skilled hunters in the dry season, eventually presents itself. A young impala, perhaps 8 months old, wanders slightly away from the main herd. It is not being rebellious or stupid, merely young and distracted by the fresh shoots of grass growing near the water's edge, green life persisting where everything else has surrendered to brown. The youngster moves behind a bush, momentarily out of sight of the adults, momentarily alone. The leopard sees this and begins her approach. She covers the first 30 meters in a low crouch, using every bit of cover, her spotted coat breaking up her outline against the dappled shadows. She pauses behind a fallen log, evaluating angles and distances with the precision of a mathematician who has failed to consider alternative career paths. The young impala is still feeding, still separated, still unaware that its remaining lifespan is being measured in seconds. At 10 meters, the leopard's muscles coil. At 7 meters, the young impala lifts its head, some instinct whispering that something is wrong. At 5 meters, the leopard launches. She covers the final distance in 3 bounds, her acceleration startling, her silence complete until the moment of contact. The young impala tries to run, its muscles responding a fraction too late to signals from its brain. The leopard's claws hook into its hindquarters, her weight dragging it down, her jaws finding the throat with practiced precision. She clamps down, cutting off air, cutting off blood flow to the brain, holding on through the impala's struggles with the grim determination of a predator who knows that losing grip means losing dinner. The adult impala scatter, their alarm calls echoing across the waterhole, their hooves thundering as they flee to safe distance. They do not attempt to help the youngster. This is not cruelty, but pragmatism, the cold mathematics of survival that governs herd animals everywhere. The young impala's struggles weaken, then cease. The leopard maintains her grip for several more seconds, ensuring the job is complete, then releases and looks around quickly. Her ears swivel, checking for approaching competitors drawn by the commotion. Hyenas can arrive with remarkable speed when they sense opportunity, and lions are never far from water in the dry season. She grabs the impala by the throat and begins dragging it toward the nearest suitable tree, a large acacia standing 50 meters from the waterhole. The impala is heavy, awkward to maneuver, but she manages through sheer determination and excellent core strength. She reaches the tree and begins the climb, pulling her prize upward through branches that seem designed specifically to make this process as difficult as possible. Thorns catch on the impala's hide. Branches obstruct the path. Physics itself seems opposed to the whole enterprise, but she persists, adjusting her grip, changing angles, finding routes through the obstacle course that is an acacia tree. 10 meters up, she reaches a solid fork and wedges the impala into place. Only then does she allow herself to relax slightly, her breathing heavy from exertion, her muscles trembling from the sustained effort. Below, the first hyena arrives, attracted by sounds or scent, or the uncanny sixth sense that scavengers seem to possess. It circles the base of the tree, looking upward with an expression that might be frustration if hyenas had expressions, which they absolutely do. The leopard ignores it and begins to feed, tearing into her prize with the satisfaction that comes from a successful hunt and the knowledge that this meal is secure from thieves who lack her particular talents. The sun sets as she eats, painting the sky in shades of orange and red that fade to purple and finally to the deep blue of approaching night. Stars emerge one by one, the same stars that have watched over leopards, in this landscape for millennia that will continue watching, long after every leopard currently alive has returned to the earth. The leopard finishes eating and settles onto her branch, her belly full, her body satisfied. She will sleep here tonight in the tree, guarding her food from the hyena still circling below and the lion whose distant roar echoes from somewhere to the north. This is her life in the dry season, a cycle of hunting, eating, sleeping, patrolling, and defending what is hers against competitors who would take it if given the chance. It is not an easy life, but it is hers, carved out through skill and strength and the stubborn refusal to surrender territory that took years to claim. The dry season will continue for 2 more months, the heat building, the water holes shrinking further, the concentration of prey and predators intensifying. There will be more hunts, more competitions, more challenges that test her abilities. But tonight, in this tree, under these stars, with food secured and enemies kept at bay, the leopard has everything she needs. She has survived another day in a landscape that eliminates the weak and the unlucky with cold efficiency. She has demonstrated once again why she is the apex ambush predator of the African savanna, why her species has persisted for millions of years despite facing every imaginable challenge. She is a leopard, perfectly adapted to her environment, magnificently equipped for her role, and currently quite full of impala, which, from her perspective, makes this a very good day indeed. The night deepens around her, and the savanna transforms into a different world. Temperatures drop rapidly once the sun disappears, the dry air unable to hold heat the way moisture-rich air does during the rainy season. Within an hour of sunset, the thermometer has fallen from 35 degrees to 20, a shift that would send most humans scrambling for jackets, but barely registers to a leopard whose coat is designed for temperature regulation across a remarkable range. The sounds of the night begin to build around her. Frogs call from the water hole, their chorus swelling and fading in rhythmic waves, dozens of voices creating a backdrop of sound that will continue until dawn. Crickets add their own contribution, a high-pitched hum that seems to come from everywhere and nowhere simultaneously. In the distance, a lion roars, the sound rolling across the grassland like thunder, declaring ownership of territory, advertising strength, warning competitors to stay distant. The leopard's ears swivel toward the sound, analyzing it for information. The roar comes from the north, perhaps 2 kilometers away, from the pride of lions that shares this landscape with her. The pride consists of 2 adult males, 5 adult females, and a shifting number of cubs, depending on how successfully the mothers have hidden them from rival males and other threats. The lions are not immediate competitors for her specific territory, as they prefer more open grassland, where their cooperative hunting strategy works best. But they are opportunistic thieves who will steal a leopard's achievements if given the chance, and the males in particular have been known to eliminate leopards simply for existing in their general vicinity. She has learned to give them considerable respect and even more considerable distance. The hyena below has finally given up its vigil and departed, its whooping calls fading as it searches for easier opportunities. The leopard watches it go with the same lack of concern she has shown all evening, then settles more comfortably on her branch. She will sleep in intervals throughout the night, waking periodically to check her surroundings, to listen for approaching danger, to ensure her food cache remains secure. This is standard procedure for a leopard with a fresh harvest. Trees provide excellent storage, but they do not guarantee perfect security. Occasionally, a particularly determined hyena will attempt the climb. More rarely, another leopard might try to steal from her, particularly if that leopard is young, hungry, and making questionable decisions about risk versus reward. And there are always the scavengers that can climb as well as she can, though they tend to be smaller and less of a threat. A genet, a cat-sized predator with a long tail and spotted coat that makes it look like a miniature leopard who shopped in the wrong section, sometimes investigates leopard kills. They are smart enough to wait until the leopard is distracted or absent, quick enough to snatch a piece of meat and vanish before retaliation arrives. The leopard finds them annoying, but not particularly threatening, like a neighbor who borrows tools and returns them slightly damaged. Hours pass in the darkness. The moon rises, 3/4 full, bright enough to cast shadows across the savanna, to turn the landscape into a study in silver and black. The leopard wakes fully around midnight, her internal clock remarkably precise, despite the absence of watches or schedules or any human concept of timekeeping. She stretches again, working the stiffness from muscles that have been still for hours, then descends from the tree with the same fluid grace she brings to every movement. She lands silently and pauses, testing the air with her nose, listening to the night sounds, gathering information about her surroundings through senses that operate far beyond human capacity. Satisfied that no immediate threats are present, she begins to move through her territory. This is part of her nightly routine during the dry season, a patrol that serves multiple purposes. She checks territorial boundaries, refreshes scent marks that have faded during the day, investigates changes in the landscape that might affect hunting or denning opportunities. She also hunts, though in a more opportunistic way than the focused stalk she executed at the waterhole. Night hunting for a leopard is often a matter of being in the right place when prey makes the wrong decision, of capitalizing on the mistakes that animals make when darkness limits their vision and heightens their other senses to a level that sometimes borders on paranoia. She moves along a game trail that cuts through tall grass, her paws finding solid ground through some combination of memory and touch, her whiskers reading the air, detecting obstacles and openings in the vegetation. Ahead, she hears movement in the grass, something small, rustling through the dry stems with the distinctive sound that marks it as either a rodent or a small antelope. She freezes mid-step, one paw raised, her body absolutely still. The movement continues, coming closer, whatever is making it unaware of the leopard's presence. Then it appears, a scrub hare, its large ears swiveling as it feeds on the sparse grass seeds available in this season. The leopard considers the opportunity with the practical mindset of a predator who has recently eaten well. The hare is small, probably provides less meat than energy required to catch it, and she has food waiting in the tree. On the other hand, prey is prey, and the dry season teaches every predator to take what opportunities present themselves regardless of current hunger levels. She makes her decision and launches from stillness to motion in a single explosive movement. The hare's reaction time is impressive. its powerful hind legs launching it forward in a zigzag pattern that would confound a less experienced hunter. But the leopard has hunted hundreds of hares in her lifetime, has learned to read their movements, to anticipate the direction changes that prey animals use to confuse predators. She adjusts her trajectory mid-leap, her paw sweeping out to knock the hare off balance, her body following through to pin it against the ground. The hare struggles briefly, then goes still. The leopard dispatches it quickly and stands with her prize, breathing only slightly heavier from the brief chase. She carries the hare to a nearby shrub and caches it there, scraping dirt and leaves over it to hide it from aerial scavengers that might pass overhead at dawn. It is a snack for later, insurance against the possibility that larger predators might steal her impala before she can finish it. The patrol continues. She crosses a dry stream bed where, during the rainy season, water flows with enough force to reshape the landscape. Now it is merely a depression filled with sand, marked with the tracks of animals that use it as a highway between different parts of the woodland. She pauses to investigate a set of tracks that catch her attention, large round prints pressed deep into the sand. Lion tracks, fresh, made within the last few hours. A male, judging by the size, probably one of the pride males from the north. She follows the tracks for a short distance, gathering information, building a picture of the lion's movements and intentions. The tracks lead toward the water hole, which makes sense given that lions need to drink regularly, despite being more tolerant of dehydration than many other large predators. She abandons the tracks and alters her route, choosing a path that will keep her distant from the water hole until she can be certain the lion has moved on. There is no point in encountering a male lion in the darkness, no benefit to be gained and considerable risk to be avoided. Male lions kill leopards when they can catch them, not out of competition for food, but out of what appears to be pure intolerance for other large predators in their domain. It is one of the many pressures that shape leopard behavior that has taught them to be ghosts in landscapes where lions rule as kings. She continues her patrol, moving through different sections of her territory, checking the markers she has left on trees and rocks and fallen logs. Some are still fresh, their scent strong, their message clear. Others have faded, their chemical signatures degraded by sun and wind and time. She refreshes these, adding new scent from the glands on her face and paws, scratching bark to leave visual marks that supplement the olfactory messages. This is not mere habit, but essential communication in a species where adults are solitary and territories are maintained through scent more than through physical presence. Other leopards passing through this area will read these marks and know that this territory is occupied, that the resident is healthy and active, that attempting to settle here will likely result in conflict. The younger female who made those tentative incursions earlier is probably reading similar messages right now, somewhere along the boundary, trying to decide if she is brave enough or desperate enough to press her claim. The older leopard suspects the answer is no, that the younger female will eventually move on to find less contested space. But one never knows for certain until the actual confrontation happens. She completes her circuit and returns to the acacia tree as the first hint of dawn begins to lighten the eastern sky. The stars fade gradually, the brightest ones lingering longest, the moon setting behind the western hills with the slow dignity of something that has witnessed this routine countless times. The leopard climbs back to her branch and checks her cache. The impala remains where she left it, undisturbed, beginning to ripen in ways that leopards find perfectly acceptable and most humans would find considerably less so. She feeds again, taking her time, eating methodically, her powerful jaws cracking bones to access the marrow within. When she has eaten her fill, she cleans her face and paws with the fastidious attention that cats bring to grooming, removing blood and bits of meat, ensuring her coat remains in proper condition. Then she settles onto her branch once more and watches the sun rise. The eastern sky shifts from black to deep blue to lighter blue, streaked with pink and gold. The sun breaks above the horizon, and suddenly the whole landscape is illuminated in warm light that makes the dry grass glow like fields of wheat. Birds begin their morning chorus, dozens of species adding their voices to the dawn, announcing territories, attracting mates, simply celebrating another day of continued existence. The leopard watches this daily miracle with the calm indifference of a creature who has seen thousands of sunrises and will hopefully see thousands more. She has survived another night in her territory. She has hunted successfully twice, adding to her resources for the challenging days ahead. She has patrolled her boundaries, maintained her markers, gathered information about competitors and potential threats. By any measure, it has been a productive night, the kind of night that successful leopards string together day after day, building a pattern of survival that spans years. The dry season stretches ahead, promising more of the same, an endless cycle of hunting and patrolling and defending what is hers. But she is ready for it, equipped by evolution and experience to thrive in conditions that would challenge less adaptable predators. She is a leopard, and this is what leopards do. They persist, they adapt, they endure. And on this particular morning, as the sun climbs higher and the heat begins to build once again, she is exactly where she is meant to be, doing exactly what she was born to do, which is enough. The weeks that follow establish a rhythm that the leopard knows well from previous dry seasons. Hunt, eat, patrol, rest, repeat. The waterhole continues to shrink, its edges pulling back from the mud like a tide that has forgotten how to return. Prey animals cluster more tightly around the remaining water, their concentrations making hunting easier, but also increasing competition among predators. The leopard encounters the younger female one evening near the southern boundary, both of them emerging from different patches of cover to find themselves facing each other across 20 meters of open ground. They freeze simultaneously, their eyes locked, their bodies tense. The younger leopard is indeed smaller, her spots still carrying the slightly fuzzy edges of youth, her posture uncertain despite an obvious attempt to project confidence. She is trying very hard to look like a leopard who belongs here, who has every right to be standing on this particular piece of ground. She is not succeeding. The older leopard stares at her with the flat, unwavering gaze that cats use to communicate messages that do not require words. The message in this case is quite clear. Leave. The younger female holds her ground for perhaps 10 seconds, her tail lashing, her ears flattened slightly in a display that is meant to appear aggressive, but comes across as mostly nervous. Then her nerve breaks. She turns and trots away, not running, but definitely departing with more speed than dignity, her tail held low in a posture that acknowledges defeat without requiring actual combat. The older leopard watches her go, satisfied that the boundary has been clarified without the need for violence. She prefers it this way. Fighting is risky even when you win, and injuries in the dry season can be particularly dangerous when infection is common and veterinary care is notably absent. Better to settle disputes through displays of confidence and status, through the careful calibration of threat and submission that allows both parties to walk away intact. She marks the boundary more heavily that night, adding fresh scrapes and scent to reinforce the message that is delivered in person. Then she returns to her core territory and resumes the business of surviving the dry season. The impala in her tree lasts 3 more days before it is reduced to bones and hide in scraps too small to be worth defending. She abandons what remains to the vultures and sets about acquiring a replacement. Hunting is good during these weeks. The concentration of prey around water makes locating targets simple, though the actual capture still requires skill and patience and the ability to get close without being detected. She takes a young water buck one afternoon, a risky choice given that water buck are large and equipped with horns that can cause serious damage if the initial attack is not perfectly executed. But the attack is perfectly executed, her approach flawless, her timing exact, her grip on the throat immediate and unshakable. The water buck struggles briefly, its greater size meaning nothing against a predator whose entire body is designed for this specific purpose. She drags it to a different tree, this one a cagellia with branches that spread wide enough to support even a large kill. The effort of hauling a water buck up a tree would make an excellent advertisement for the benefits of functional strength training if leopards were interested in such things, which they are not. They are interested in not having their dinner stolen, which amounts to the same thing. She feeds on the water buck for 5 days, returning to the tree multiple times each day, defending it from hyenas and jackals, and even a young lion who wanders too close and receives a hissing reception that sends it backing away with what might be embarrassment if lions experience such emotions. They probably do not, but the effect is the same. The days blend together, each one hot and dry, and fundamentally similar to the one before it. The leopard settles into the routine of dry season existence, her body lean but healthy, her coat glossy despite the dust that coats everything in this landscape. She is thriving in conditions that challenge many predators, her solitary hunting style perfectly suited to a time when prey is concentrated and patience is rewarded. But then, 6 weeks into the dry season, something changes. The leopard begins to feel different, a shift in her body chemistry that she does not understand but responds to instinctively. Her movements become more restless, her scent marking more frequent, her vocalizations more pronounced. She is coming into estrus, the brief window when female leopards are receptive to mating, when their bodies prepare for the possibility of reproduction. It happens roughly every 3 to 4 months for females who are not currently raising cubs, an efficient system that allows for multiple breeding opportunities throughout the year. The timing is not ideal given the dry season conditions, but evolution did not consult the weather forecast when designing leopard reproductive cycles. She begins calling, a sound that is difficult to describe to someone who has never heard it. It is part saw cutting wood, part cough, part something else entirely, a rasping vocalization that carries far across the savanna and announces to any male leopards in range that a breeding opportunity exists. The calls continue through the night, repeated at intervals, broadcasting her status to a world that is suddenly very interested in her location. Within 2 days, a male arrives. He is larger than she is, perhaps 60 kilograms to her 45, his body thick with muscle, his face marked with scars from previous territorial disputes and mating competitions. He appears at the edge of her territory just after sunset. His own scent marks announcing his presence before she actually sees him. She approaches, cautiously, her posture a complex mixture of attraction and wariness. Male leopards during breeding season are focused but not necessarily gentle, and the initial interactions require careful negotiation to avoid conflict. They circle each other, vocalizing, their tails lashing, their movements a dance that is part courtship and part mutual assessment. He is evaluating her fitness as a mate, her health, her territory quality. She is evaluating his genetics, his strength, his likelihood of producing cubs that will inherit desirable traits. Neither of them is thinking about it in these terms, of course. They are simply responding to instincts that have been refined over millions of years, following behavioral scripts written in their DNA. The courtship continues for several hours, a gradual reduction of distance, an increase of tolerance as they become accustomed to each other's presence. Eventually, she allows him closer, and the actual mating begins. It is brief, violent-looking to human observers, and repeated frequently over the next 3 days. Leopard mating is not romantic in any conventional sense. The male mounts roughly, grips the female's neck in his jaws, and the entire process lasts perhaps 30 seconds before both separate with hisses and snarls. Then they rest, groom themselves, and repeat the process an hour later. This continues day and night, dozens of matings that serve to ensure fertilization and also to stimulate ovulation in the female, whose reproductive system requires this specific trigger to release eggs. Between mating sessions, they tolerate each other's presence with varying degrees of comfort. The male is not aggressive toward her, but neither is he affectionate in ways that humans would recognize. He simply is there, sharing her territory temporarily, focused entirely on the reproductive opportunity she represents. They hunt separately, each taking their own prey, neither willing to share food despite their temporary partnership. He takes a young impala on the second day and drags it up a tree on the edge of her territory. She watches this operation with interest, but makes no attempt to steal from him, and he extends the same courtesy when she makes her own harvest. By the 4th day, her estrus is fading, the hormonal surge that made her receptive beginning to decline. The male senses this change and begins to withdraw, his interest waning as the breeding opportunity closes. He departs that evening, moving back into his own territory, which overlaps with hers and 2 other females, his departure as unceremonious as his arrival. He will return if she comes into estrus again and he detects her calls before a competitor does. Until then, he has no interest in her beyond the genetic legacy he has potentially left. The leopard watches him go with what might be relief, though attributing complex emotions to leopards is always questionable. She resumes her solitary routine, her territory quiet, again, the brief interruption of mating season already fading into background noise. She does not know if she is pregnant. Her body does not provide obvious signals in these early weeks, and even if she could understand such signals, leopards do not plan for the future in ways that involve preparation. They simply respond to conditions as they arise, adapting to changes as they occur. For now, her life continues as before. Hunt, eat, patrol, rest, repeat. The dry season persists, the heat building day after day, the landscape growing harsher as water becomes increasingly scarce. The main water hole in her territory has shrunk to a muddy depression, perhaps 10 meters across, its edges trampled to soup by desperate animals that have no choice but to drink from what remains. The water itself has taken on a questionable appearance, thick with sediment and probably hosting more parasites than water molecules. But thirst overrides aesthetic concerns for animals in the dry season. The leopard drinks from it sparingly, her system more tolerant of dehydration than many species, her kidneys efficient at concentrating urine to conserve every possible drop of moisture. She also gets water from her prey, the blood and body fluids of her kills providing significant hydration. This is one advantage of being a carnivore in the dry season. You do not need to drink as frequently as the herbivores, whose plant-based diet provides minimal moisture. The concentration of prey around the water hole intensifies as conditions worsen. Hundreds of impala, zebra, wildebeest, and other species now compete for access to the shrinking pool, their numbers creating a spectacle that would be impressive if it were not also slightly desperate. The leopard hunts almost daily now, taking advantage of opportunities that present themselves with remarkable frequency. She kills, eats, caches what remains, and returns to hunt again when hunger or opportunity motivates her. Her body is storing resources, building fat reserves that will sustain her through whatever challenges lie ahead. If she is pregnant, those reserves will become essential during late gestation when her mobility decreases and hunting becomes more difficult. If she is not pregnant, the reserves will simply help her survive the remainder of the dry season and the transition into the rains. Either way, the strategy is sound. Eat when food is available because you never know when availability might change. 7 weeks after the male's departure, her body provides the first subtle hint that the mating was successful. Her nipples darken slightly, barely noticeable against her spotted coat, but present if examined closely, which she does not do because leopards are not prone to self-examination. Her appetite increases further, her body demanding more calories to support the developing embryos. She is carrying 2 cubs, though she has no way of knowing this. Leopard litters typically range from 1 to 3 cubs, with 2 being most common in areas where prey is abundant and maternal condition is good. Her body has made this calculation at a cellular level, allocating resources to support 2 embryos but not 3, ensuring that she can provide adequate nutrition during pregnancy and lactation without compromising her own survival. The gestation period for leopards is approximately 3 months, which means the cubs will be born during the late dry season or possibly the early rains, depending on when the weather finally breaks. The timing is not ideal but not catastrophic either. A late dry season means concentrated prey and relatively easy hunting, which helps a pregnant female maintain her nutritional needs. Early rains mean the beginning of new growth, the return of dispersed herds, a landscape transitioning from brown to green. Both scenarios are workable for an experienced mother, which she will be despite this being her first litter. Leopards do not practice parenting, they simply do it, guided by instincts that have successfully raised cubs for countless generations. As her pregnancy progresses, she begins searching for a suitable denning site. This is not an urgent task in the early weeks, but it occupies part of her attention during patrols, her eyes noting possibilities, her mind evaluating options according to criteria that would make sense to any mother preparing a nursery. The den must be secure from predators, hidden from casual observation, dry during the rains, and located near good hunting grounds. It should have multiple entrances if possible, escape routes in case of danger, and a configuration that allows her to defend it if necessary. She investigates several sites over the following weeks, crawling into rocky crevices, checking hollow logs, exploring dense thickets that might provide adequate cover. None of them feel quite right. Some problem with each location that disqualifies it from consideration. Too exposed, too damp, too difficult to access, too far from water. She continues searching, patient in the knowledge that the right den exists somewhere in her territory, waiting to be discovered. The dry season reaches its peak intensity 10 weeks after the rains ended. The temperature climbs above 40 degrees in the afternoon, the air shimmering with heat, the landscape wavering like something viewed through water. Animals move only when absolutely necessary, conserving energy, seeking shade, enduring conditions that test the limits of their physiological tolerance. The leopard spends these peak heat hours in whatever shade she can find, usually high in a tree where any breath of air can reach her, her body stretched along a branch, her breathing slow and shallow. She is visibly pregnant now, her belly swollen, her movements slightly awkward, though she remains remarkably agile for a cat carrying 2 developing cubs. She hunts during the cooler hours, focusing on smaller prey that requires less effort to subdue and drag to safety. A young warthog one evening, emerging from its burrow at an unfortunate moment. A bushbuck the next morning, drinking at the water hole when it should have been watching for predators. A steenbok 2 days later, simply in the wrong place at the wrong time. Each kill is executed with the precision that comes from years of practice, her pregnancy slowing her only marginally, her skills still sharp despite the physical changes. She eats heavily from each kill, her body demanding calories, her metabolism working overtime to support 2 growing cubs while maintaining her own condition. Then, 11 weeks into the dry season, with her pregnancy entering its final month, the leopard finds the perfect den. It is a jumble of large boulders on a hillside, collapsed long ago into a configuration that creates multiple chambers and passages. The entrance is narrow, hidden behind dense brush, nearly invisible unless you know exactly where to look. Inside, the main chamber is spacious enough for a leopard and cubs, with a sandy floor that will provide soft bedding and good drainage. The temperature is noticeably cooler than outside, the rocks providing insulation from the worst of the heat. And critically, there is a secondary entrance at the back, a crack between boulders that leads to an escape route if the main entrance becomes compromised. She investigates thoroughly, checking every corner, testing the structural integrity of the roof, satisfying herself that this location meets all her requirements. Then she claims it, adding her scent to the rocks, scratching marks near the entrance, establishing ownership of what will become her maternity ward. The den is ready. Her body is ready. All that remains is waiting for the cubs to decide they are ready to enter the world. And in the African dry season, surrounded by heat and dust and predators and challenges, a leopard prepares to become a mother, which changes everything. The final weeks of pregnancy alter her routine in subtle but significant ways. She becomes more cautious, her movements more calculated, her risk tolerance notably reduced. Hunting continues because eating continues to be necessary, but she selects prey more carefully now, avoiding targets that might fight back with dangerous intensity. No more water buck with their sharp horns, no more warthogs with their surprising aggression, no more anything that could land a blow to her swollen belly. Instead, she focuses on impala fawns, young vervet monkeys caught on the ground, the occasional guinea fowl too slow to reach the safety of trees. Smaller meals eaten more frequently, a strategy that reduces risk while maintaining her caloric intake. Her relationship with her territory also shifts. The core area around the den becomes her primary focus, the place where she spends most of her time, the center of a shrinking world. She still patrols boundaries occasionally, but less frequently, less thoroughly. Her priorities adjusted to favor denning security over territorial defense. The younger female who was testing borders earlier in the season seems to have moved on, her scent markers absent for several weeks now. Either she found her own territory elsewhere, or she did not survive the dry season's challenges, both equally possible outcomes for a young leopard trying to establish herself in a landscape full of competitors. The older leopard spends long hours near the den, familiarizing herself with every approach route, every sight line, every sound that might indicate approaching danger. She memorizes the locations of trees suitable for quick escape with a cub in her mouth, identifies rocks that could serve as defensive positions if retreat becomes necessary. This is preparation happening at an instinctual level, her brain processing information and building contingency plans without conscious thought or deliberate strategy. She just knows, the way leopards have always known, that cubs are vulnerable and mothers must be ready for every possibility. The waterhole continues its gradual disappearance, now reduced to a puddle that might charitably be called moist dirt. Animals still come to paw at the mud, extracting what little moisture remains, their desperation visible in the way they cluster and compete for access. The leopard has shifted her drinking to a different location, a small seep spring on the hillside near her den, where water emerges from between rocks, barely a trickle, but clean and reliable. She visits it twice daily, lapping carefully, her tongue working to capture drops that would evaporate within minutes if left in the open air. The spring is one reason she chose this denning location, though she did not consciously recognize it as a factor. Her instincts simply guided her toward a place with multiple advantages, and access to water scored high on the list of requirements for raising cubs in the dry season. 11 weeks and 4 days after mating, she wakes from an afternoon rest, feeling distinctly uncomfortable. Her body is sending signals that something is about to change. Chemical messages that trigger behavioral responses programmed deep in her nervous system. She rises and moves to the den, entering through the narrow opening, settling into the main chamber on the sandy floor. Outside, the sun beats down with its usual enthusiasm, unaware and uncaring that a significant event is about to occur in the boulder jumble below. The contractions begin in early evening, mild at first, barely noticeable, gradually building in intensity and frequency. The leopard shifts position repeatedly, trying to find comfort, her breathing changing as her body begins the work of delivery. There is no pain medication in the wild, no epidural option, no supportive partner coaching breathing patterns. There is only her body doing what bodies do, following processes refined over millions of years of mammalian evolution. The first cub arrives as the sun sets, sliding into the world in a membrane that the mother immediately tears away with her teeth. The cub is tiny, perhaps half a kilogram, blind and helpless, and already mewing with the sound that seems far too loud for something so small. She licks it vigorously, stimulating breathing, cleaning away fluids, her rough tongue working over the tiny body with focused intensity. The cub is a male, his spotted coat already visible, though the spots are less distinct than they will become. His eyes sealed shut, his ears folded against his head. He has a face that could charitably be described as potato-shaped, a body that resembles a small spotted sausage with legs, and absolutely no awareness that he has just entered one of the harshest environments on the planet during its most difficult season. The second cub arrives 90 minutes later, the process similar, though the mother is now experienced enough to know what to expect. This one is female, slightly smaller than her brother, but equally vocal, equally demanding of immediate attention. The mother cleans her as thoroughly as she did the first, her maternal instincts now fully engaged, her entire focus narrowed to these two tiny lives that depend completely on her survival. She eats the afterbirth, not from some gourmet appreciation, but because it provides valuable nutrition, and also because leaving it would attract scavengers to the den site. Then she settles carefully around both cubs, positioning them against her belly where they can find nipples, where her body heat will keep them warm through the cooling night. They latch on with surprising efficiency for creatures only hours old, suckling with the focused intensity of the very hungry and very new. The mother lies still, her body curved protectively around them, her ears monitoring the sounds outside the den. This is the most vulnerable period for leopard cubs, these first weeks when they are utterly helpless, when their mother must hunt to feed herself while also protecting them from the numerous threats that would happily eliminate young leopards. Lions kill leopard cubs when they find them, removing future competition. Hyenas kill them for the same reason, and possibly also because hyenas are generally unpleasant about such things. Male leopards, including potentially their own father, will kill them to bring the mother back into estrus and create new breeding opportunities. Even pythons and eagles pose threats to small cubs left unguarded. The list of things that want to harm them is extensive and deeply motivating for their mother. She will not leave them for the first 3 days, remaining in the den continuously, nursing them, cleaning them, keeping them warm. Her body will metabolize its fat reserves to sustain her through this period, providing milk for the cubs while drawing on stored energy to keep her own systems functioning. It is exhausting, depleting, necessary, After 3 days, hunger will drive her out to hunt, but those first 72 hours belong entirely to the cubs, to establishing milk flow, to bonding, to ensuring these tiny lives have the best possible start. The night outside is quiet, the usual sounds of the savannah muted, as if the landscape itself is giving the new family space to settle in. A nightjar calls from somewhere in the darkness, its churring song mechanical and persistent. Frogs chorus from the distant waterhole, their voices fading as the puddle continues its inevitable evaporation. The wind picks up briefly, sending a drift of warm air across the hillside, rustling the dry grass that surrounds the boulder jumble. Inside the den, the cubs nurse and sleep, their entire world consisting of warmth and milk and the sound of their mother's heartbeat. They have no knowledge of the dry season raging outside, no awareness of the challenges that await them, no concept of what it means to be a leopard in Africa. They are simply alive, and for now, that is enough. The mother lies awake, dozing occasionally, but never deeply, her senses alert for any sound that might indicate approaching danger. This is her routine now, this constant vigilance, this readiness to defend or flee, depending on what the threat requires. She has entered the most demanding phase of her life, the months of raising cubs when her own survival must be balanced against theirs, when every decision carries weight, when failure means the loss of everything she has invested in these 2 tiny lives. But for tonight, in this den, with her cubs nursing peacefully against her belly, she has succeeded in the first step. She has given birth, she has established the foundation, she has begun the process that might, if fortune favors them all, result in 2 adult leopards who will carry her genes forward into future generations. The dry season continues outside, indifferent to births and deaths, and the small dramas playing out in dens scattered across the landscape. The heat will persist for weeks yet, the rain still a distant promise, the conditions challenging for every living thing. But inside a boulder jumble on a hillside, surrounded by rocks that hold the day's warmth and radiate it slowly through the cooling night, 2 leopard cubs experience their first hours of life. They are blind, helpless, utterly dependent. They are also alive, thriving, protected by a mother whose entire existence has now oriented around their survival. The cycle continues. The leopard line persists, and on this particular night, in this particular den, under stars that have witnessed countless leopard births across countless millennia, a new chapter begins. 2 cubs, 1 mother, 1,000 challenges ahead. But also 2 cubs, 1 mother, and 3 months of dry season experience that has prepared her for exactly this moment. She has hunted successfully, she has defended her territory, she has stored resources, she has chosen her den wisely. Now she must apply all of that experience, all of that skill, all of that hard-won knowledge to the task of keeping 2 tiny leopards alive long enough for them to become not-so-tiny leopards. It is a daunting task. It is also what leopards do, what they have always done, what they will continue doing as long as the savannah exists, and prey animals make mistakes, and trees offer refuge from competitors. The mother shifts slightly, adjusting her position around the nursing cubs, her tail curled over them like an additional blanket. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new hunts, new threats to assess and counter. But tomorrow is not tonight, and tonight belongs to these 3 leopards in their den, safe for now, together for now, a family unit that did not exist 12 hours ago, but now defines everything. The cubs sleep, the mother watches, the dry season continues, and life, despite all evidence suggesting it should be impossible in these conditions, persists with the stubborn determination that characterizes everything that survives in Africa, which is everyone who matters, at least for tonight. The first 3 days pass in a blur of nursing and sleeping, and the occasional mewing protest when a cub loses contact with the nipple. The mother remains in the den continuously, her body curved around her cubs, her world reduced to this small chamber of rock and sand. She does not eat, does not drink, does not leave even to relieve herself. Her body metabolizes fat reserves, converting stored energy into milk, into warmth, into the life support that keeps 2 tiny leopards alive. By the end of the 3rd day, hunger has become impossible to ignore. Her stomach contracts with the empty feeling that motivates all predators, the sensation that says food is no longer optional, but necessary. She waits until evening, until the heat has faded and darkness provides cover, then carefully extracts herself from the sleeping cubs. They protest briefly, their mewing rising in volume, but she has positioned them in the warmest part of the den where they can huddle together for heat. They settle after a moment, 2 spotted potato shapes pressed against each other, already learning that mother sometimes leaves but always returns. She squeezes through the narrow entrance and emerges into the night, her body stiff from 3 days of immobility, her senses adjusting to the world beyond the den. The landscape is unchanged from when she entered, still dry, still hot even after sunset, still fundamentally hostile to life that lacks adaptations for extreme conditions. She stretches carefully, working the stiffness from her legs, then begins moving down the hillside toward the hunting grounds she knows so well. Her body feels different now, lighter without the pregnancy, but heavier with milk production, her teats swollen and occasionally leaking drops that she licks away to prevent scent trails that might lead predators to the den. The hunt must be quick, efficient, successful. She cannot afford to spend hours stalking prey or tracking wounded animals across the savannah. The cubs need her back within a few hours, and every minute away is a minute they are vulnerable. She travels to the waterhole, or what remains of it, now barely a damp spot in the earth that animals paw at desperately. A small herd of impala clusters nearby, their numbers reduced from earlier in the season, the weak and unlucky already eliminated by predators or dehydration or simple bad fortune. The leopard approaches from downwind, using the cover of darkness and her practiced stealth, her movements economical, her focus absolute. She selects a young female impala, perhaps a year old, separated slightly from the main group. The stalk takes 20 minutes, each movement calculated, each pause timed to coincide with moments when the impala looks away or drops its head to feed. At 8 meters, she launches. The impala detects movement and tries to flee, but the leopard's acceleration is devastating, her claws finding purchase, her weight dragging the prey down. The throat bite is immediate, practiced, lethal. Within 90 seconds, the impala stops struggling. The leopard drags it quickly toward the nearest tree, urgency making her movements faster than usual, less cautious about scavengers that might be watching. She needs to eat and return to the den. Everything else is secondary. She hauls the impala up the tree with effort that leaves her breathing heavily, positions it in a secure fork, then feeds with focused intensity. Her jaws work through meat and organs, her body absorbing nutrients that will convert to milk, that will sustain her cubs through the coming days. She eats perhaps a third of the impala, more than she normally would in a single feeding, but less than she is capable of consuming. Then she descends and begins the journey back to the den, moving quickly through the darkness, her ears swiveling to track sounds, her nose monitoring for threats. She reaches the boulder jumble and squeezes through the entrance to find both cubs awake and vocal about her absence. Their mewing fills the small chamber with sound that seems far too loud for creatures so small. She settles around them and they latch onto nipples immediately, suckling with the desperate enthusiasm of the very hungry and very young. The milk flows, her body converting the impala she just consumed into nutrition for her offspring, the cycle of predation and motherhood completing another rotation. This becomes the pattern for the next several weeks. Leave at dusk, hunt quickly, eat rapidly, return before dawn. The cubs grow with remarkable speed, their eyes opening at 10 days old to reveal cloudy blue that will eventually change to amber. Their ears unfold, standing upright on heads that are still too large for their bodies. Their legs strengthen, allowing them to wobble around the den on unsteady paws, exploring their limited world with the curiosity that characterizes young cats. The male cub is slightly larger, slightly bolder, the first to venture toward the den entrance, the first to attempt play fighting with his sister. The female is more cautious, more observant, spending longer periods watching before acting. Both are healthy, thriving on their mother's milk, gaining weight daily. By 3 weeks old, they have developed personalities distinct enough for even a leopard to notice. The male is clumsy, enthusiastic, prone to tumbling over his own paws in his eagerness to investigate everything. The female is coordinated, deliberate, successful in her attempts to climb onto rocks and fallen branches in the den. They play fight constantly, tiny growls and hisses accompanying wrestling matches that would be adorable if leopards appreciated adorability, which they do not. Their mother watches these interactions with the patient tolerance that mothers everywhere develop when dealing with energetic offspring. She cleans them regularly, her rough tongue grooming their coats, stimulating their digestion, removing any scent that might attract predators. She moves them occasionally, carrying them by the scruff to different chambers within the boulder jumble, changing locations to prevent scent buildup in any single spot. The cubs dangle limply when carried, their bodies programmed to go limp and quiet when gripped by the neck, an evolutionary adaptation that makes transportation easier and safer. The dry season continues its slow march toward conclusion, though conclusion is still weeks away. The landscape has reached peak harshness, every plant dormant or deceased, every water source reduced to memory or mud. Animals continue to concentrate around the few remaining resources, their desperation visible in the way they compete for access, the way they take risks they would normally avoid. The leopard's hunting remains successful, her stored knowledge of prey behavior serving her well. She takes impala, bushbuck, young warthogs, even a vervet monkey that made the mistake of descending from its tree after dark. Each kill is eaten partially, then abandoned, her priority being rapid return to the den rather than securing food in trees for later consumption. It is wasteful by normal leopard standards, but normal standards do not apply when you have two cubs that need constant supervision. Other predators benefit from her new strategy. Hyenas and jackals scavenge from kills she leaves behind, arriving within hours to strip carcasses she would normally have defended. She watches this theft from a distance, on one occasion, returning from the den to find her previous night's impala surrounded by hyenas. She considers confronting them, then thinks about her cubs alone in the den and decides that some battles are not worth fighting. The impala is already lost. The cubs are not. She turns and heads back to the boulder jumble, leaving the hyenas to their feast. At 4 weeks old, the cubs begin eating their first solid food. Their mother brings back portions of her kills, small pieces of meat that she carries in her mouth, regurgitates in the den. The cubs investigate these offerings with the suspicious enthusiasm of children presented with unfamiliar vegetables. The male tries to eat a piece and mostly succeeds, despite the fact that his teeth are still developing and his jaw strength is minimal. The female watches her brother's attempt, learns from his technique, then tries herself with slightly better results. Within days, both cubs are eagerly anticipating the meat deliveries, though they continue nursing as their primary nutrition source. Their mother's hunting intensifies to meet the increased caloric demands, her body now supporting not just milk production, but also providing actual food for increasingly hungry offspring. She is lean despite eating well, her metabolism running at maximum output, her body converting every calorie into the biological products required to raise cubs. This is the most demanding period of her life. These weeks when the cubs need constant care but are not yet mobile enough to follow her or competent enough to be left alone for extended periods. She is essentially working 2 jobs simultaneously, hunting and mothering, with no days off and no backup support. Male leopards do not participate in cub rearing, a fact that would generate numerous think pieces about parenting equity if leopards read think pieces, which they do not. They are too busy surviving. The boulder den proves to be an excellent choice. Its multiple chambers and entrances provide options for dealing with threats. Its location on the hillside offers good visibility of approaches. Its proximity to the small spring ensures water access without long journeys. Several times during these weeks, danger comes near. A hyena investigates the area one afternoon, drawn by some scent or sound that suggests food might be available. The mother is inside the den with the cubs, her body tense, her ears tracking the hyena's movements outside. The hyena sniffs around the entrance, perhaps detecting leopard scent, perhaps just being thorough in its search for opportunities. For several long minutes, the situation balances, on edge of confrontation. If the hyena enters the den, the mother will fight. Though fighting in confined spaces against an animal nearly her own size while protecting cubs is not an optimal scenario. But the hyena apparently decides the risk is not worth whatever reward might exist inside a dark hole guarded by an angry leopard. It moves on, its whooping calls fading as it searches elsewhere. The mother remains alert for another hour, ensuring the threat has truly departed, before relaxing her vigilance. Another time, a male leopard passes through the area, his scent marks appearing on trees near the den site. She does not know if he is the father of her cubs. Leopards do not maintain such records, but his presence triggers alarm regardless. Male leopards are infanticidal, killing cubs that are not currently nursing to bring females back into breeding condition sooner. It is an evolutionary strategy that makes sense from a genetic perspective, but is less appealing from a motherhood perspective. She increases her scent marking around the den, leaving chemical messages that indicate she is still nursing, still occupied, still not available for mating. The male apparently receives these messages and moves on without investigating further. The threat passes, but the encounter reminds her that danger comes from multiple directions, that vigilance must be constant. At 6 weeks old, the cubs begin venturing outside the den for brief periods. Their first excursion into sunlight is comical in its caution. The male emerges first, naturally, his head appearing in the entrance, his eyes squinting against brightness he has never experienced. He takes one tentative step onto the rock outside the den, then freezes as if he has just stepped onto a different planet, which in a sense he has. His sister follows, equally cautious, equally overwhelmed by the vast space that exists beyond their familiar boulder chamber. They stay close to the entrance, ready to bolt back inside at any perceived threat, their tiny bodies tense with alertness. Their mother watches from a few meters away, allowing them this exploration, but ready to intervene if necessary. A bird calls overhead, and both cubs scramble back into the den with a speed that suggests they have encountered a dragon rather than a francolin. She waits patiently, and eventually they emerge again, their confidence growing with each venture outside. Within days, they are spending hours outside the den during morning and evening, playing on the rocks, stalking insects, attempting to climb boulders that are far too large for their current abilities. The male tries to pounce on a lizard and misses by a distance that would be embarrassing if leopards experienced embarrassment. The lizard, apparently entertained by the attempt, sits on a nearby rock watching the cub with what might be amusement if lizards had such capacity. They probably do. The female practices stalking techniques on her brother, creeping up behind him while he is distracted by something else, pouncing on his tail with a tiny growl that would terrify exactly nothing. He whirls around and they tumble into a wrestling match that ends when both get dizzy and fall off the small boulder they were fighting on. Their mother watches these developments with the expression that mothers everywhere adopt when their offspring are being simultaneously adorable and ridiculous. She intervenes only when play becomes too rough or when someone ventures too far from the den. Otherwise, she lets them learn through experience, through trial and error, through the process of discovering what their bodies can do and what the world contains. The dry season is finally beginning to show signs of ending. The heat remains intense, but there is a quality to the air now that was absent before, a humidity that makes the mornings feel different, that makes animals look toward the sky with what might be hope. Clouds appear on some afternoons, towering formations that build through the day, then dissipate without releasing rain, teasing the landscape with possibility. The animals watch these clouds with the intensity of investors watching stock tickers, hoping for change, waiting for relief. The cubs are now 7 weeks old, more mobile, more competent, more exhausting to supervise. They still nurse, but eat solid meat for an increasing percentage of their diet. Their teeth are coming in properly, their jaws strengthening, their ability to tear and chew improving daily. Their mother hunts almost every night now, her kills needing to be larger to feed 3 leopards instead of 1. She brings back larger portions of meat, sometimes dragging an entire leg to the den, letting the cubs practice their feeding skills on bones and joints. They gnaw enthusiastically, their tiny jaws working, their determination impressive, even if their efficiency is not. The male manages to crack a small bone and is visibly proud of this achievement. His sister is less interested in bone cracking and more focused on eating the actual meat, a practical approach that serves her well. Both cubs are developing the skills they will need to survive as adult leopards, though survival is still many months away and depends on numerous factors beyond their current control. Their mother continues to hunt, continues to provide, continues to watch for threats. The dry season stretches toward its inevitable conclusion. The rains are coming, the cubs are growing, the cycle continues. And on a hillside in the African savanna, in a den among boulders, a leopard family prepares for the next phase of their journey together. The phase where water returns to the land, where the landscape transforms from brown to green, where hunting changes and challenges shift, and life, for a brief period, becomes slightly easier before becoming difficult again in different ways. But that is tomorrow's concern. Tonight, the cubs sleep in a pile, their spotted bodies pressed together, their breathing synchronized. Their mother lies at the entrance, watching the darkness, listening to sounds, fulfilling the role that has occupied leopard mothers for millions of years. Protect, provide, prepare. The essentials of motherhood, whether you are a leopard or anything else. The night deepens. The stars wheel overhead, and 3 leopards rest in their den, safe for now, together for now, ready for whatever comes next, which will be rain. Finally, mercifully, inevitably, rain. The signs build gradually over the following week, nature broadcasting its intentions through channels that humans might miss, but animals read fluently. The wind shifts direction, no longer coming from the north, but from the east, carrying with it the scent of distant ocean, of moisture, of change. Insects that have been dormant through the dry season begin to emerge, their wings catching sunlight as they perform mating flights above the parched grass. Termites swarm one evening, millions of wing forms rising from their mounds in synchronized emergence, filling the air with protein-rich opportunities that bring every insect-eating creature within miles. The leopard cubs watch this phenomenon with fascination bordering on obsession, their heads tilting to track individual termites, their tiny paws swatting at the air in attempts to catch the flying insects. The male manages to catch one in his mouth and immediately spits it out, his expression suggesting that termites taste better in theory than in practice. His sister learns from this demonstration and focuses her efforts on watching rather than tasting. Birds arrive that were absent during the dry season, migrants returning from wherever they spent the harsh months, reclaiming territories, building nests, filling the air with songs that have been silent for months. The morning chorus grows richer each day, dozens of species adding their voices, creating a symphony that marks the changing season as clearly as any calendar. The clouds that have been teasing the landscape for weeks begin to build higher, darker, their bases flattening in ways that suggest they might finally deliver on their implied promises. Animals watch these developments with an attention that borders on religious fervor. The impala herds, decimated by months of predation and dehydration, begin to scatter slightly from the waterhole, as if anticipating that water will soon be available in multiple locations. Zebras roll in the dust with increased enthusiasm, their behavior linked to atmospheric pressure changes that signal approaching rain. Even the leopard feels different, her body responding to environmental cues, her energy levels shifting in ways she does not consciously recognize, but responds to instinctively. The cubs are 8 weeks old when the first rain finally arrives. It comes in the afternoon, the clouds building through the morning into towering formations that block the sun, that turn the sky from blue to gray to nearly black. The temperature drops noticeably, the air cooling in ways that have been impossible during the dry season's relentless heat. Thunder rumbles in the distance, a sound the cubs have never heard, a deep vibration that seems to come from the earth itself. They press against their mother, alarmed by this new phenomenon, seeking reassurance from her calm presence. She sits at the den entrance, watching the approaching storm with the patient interest of someone who has witnessed this transition many times before. The wind picks up, gusting across the hillside, bending the dry grass, sending dust swirling into the air. Birds fall silent, taking shelter in trees and bushes, their songs paused in recognition that something significant is about to occur. Then the first drops fall, scattered at first, each one hitting the parched earth with a small puff of dust, the smell of rain on dry ground rising immediately, a scent called petrichor that humans love and animals simply accept as normal. The drops increase in frequency, building from occasional to steady to torrential within minutes. The rain falls in sheets, curtains of water sweeping across the landscape, soaking everything, transforming the world from dry to wet with startling speed. The sound is tremendous, millions of drops hitting earth and rock and vegetation, creating a white noise that drowns out everything else. The cubs watch this display with wide eyes, their small bodies huddled together just inside the den entrance, fascinated and slightly terrified by the violence of the storm. The male ventures one paw outside, testing this falling water situation, immediately withdraws it when rain hits his face with more force than anticipated. His sister makes a sound that in a human might be interpreted as laughter, but in a leopard cub is simply vocalization without clear meaning. Their mother sits calmly, letting rain soak her coat, her face turned upward, her eyes half closed. She has been waiting for this moment, this breaking of the dry season's grip, this return of water to a landscape that has been desperate for it. The rain continues for an hour, then tapers off, the clouds moving on, leaving behind a transformed world. The dust is gone, washed away, leaving the earth clean and dark. The few remaining puddles have expanded into small pools, their surfaces dimpled by the last falling drops. The air smells different, clean, fresh, alive in ways it has not smelled for months. And everywhere there is water, running down rocks, collecting in depressions, flowing in channels that have been dry since the last rainy season ended. The dry stream bed near the den runs with water for the first time in months, a small torrent that will fade within hours, but for now creates a miniature river through the landscape. The cubs investigate this new phenomenon cautiously, approaching the water, sniffing it, the male eventually putting one paw in and jumping back when the water moves around his foot. Water is not supposed to move like this, their expressions suggest. Water in their limited experience comes from their mother's spring and stays still. Their mother drinks from the stream, lapping efficiently, her body absorbing moisture that supplements what she gets from prey. The cubs watch and eventually imitate, their tiny pink tongues lapping at the flowing water, their technique improving with practice. Over the following days, more rains come, each one building on the previous, each one adding more water to the landscape. The transformation is remarkable in its speed. Within a week, green shoots emerge from the seemingly dead grass, new growth responding to the moisture with enthusiasm that borders on desperate. Within 2 weeks, the savanna is visibly greener, the brown giving way to colors that have been absent for months. Flowers bloom in scattered patches, bright spots of color against the grass, attracting insects that in turn attract birds that have not been seen during the dry season. The water holes refill, first the main ones that never completely dried, then the seasonal pools that exist only during the rains, spreading water across the landscape. Prey animals scatter with this new abundance, no longer forced to concentrate around a few remaining sources. The impala herds spread out, utilizing territory they abandoned during the dry months, finding fresh grazing in areas that have been empty. Zebra and wildebeest move through the region, migrating herds following the rains, following the green, following the ancient patterns that have guided them for thousands of generations. For the leopard, this transition brings both advantages and challenges. The advantage is that water is now everywhere, easily accessible, no longer requiring journeys or competition. She can drink from puddles near the den, from the stream when it flows after rain, from any of a dozen sources within her territory. The challenge is that prey is now dispersed, no longer helpfully concentrated, requiring more effort to locate and stalk. Hunting becomes harder in some ways, easier in others. The scattered prey means more searching, more patience, more careful selection of targets. But the lush vegetation provides excellent cover for stalking, the tall green grass hiding her approach more effectively than the sparse dry season growth ever did. And the prey animals, relieved by the abundance after months of scarcity, are slightly less vigilant, their guard lowered fractionally by the improved conditions. She adjusts her strategy, hunting over larger areas, spending more time searching for the right opportunity, taking advantage of the cover when she finds it. The cubs are 9 weeks old, increasingly mobile, increasingly demanding to accompany their mother on her activities. She allows them to follow for short distances, teaching them basic skills through demonstration. How to move quietly through grass. How to test the wind direction with your nose. How to freeze when prey looks your direction. How to be patient when every instinct screams to pounce immediately. The male cub is enthusiastic but lacks subtlety. His approach is loud enough to alert prey animals from considerable distances. The female is quieter, more careful, her movements showing promise even at this young age. Both have much to learn, but the foundation is being laid, the skills developing through observation and practice. One evening, their mother allows them to accompany her on an actual hunt, though they are instructed through body language to remain hidden while she does the actual work. She stalks a young impala that has separated from its herd, moving through the grass with perfect stealth, the cubs watching from cover 20 meters behind. The stalk takes 15 minutes, the mother covering ground so slowly that movement is barely perceptible, her body low, her focus absolute. The cubs watch, fascinated, learning lessons that no amount of play fighting could teach. Then the final rush, the explosive sprint, the collision, the throat grip that ends the impala's struggles within seconds. The cubs emerge from cover and approach cautiously, sniffing the fresh kill, their mother allowing them to investigate before she begins feeding. They try to help eat, but their teeth and jaws are still developing, their ability to tear tough hide limited. She opens the carcass for them, exposing the softer internal organs, letting them feed on easier targets while she works on the muscle and bone. It is a family meal, the first of many that will teach the cubs what it means to be a predator, what it means to kill to survive, what it means to be a leopard in a landscape that offers no participation trophies. The rains settle into a pattern, falling most afternoons, leaving mornings clear and bright, the air fresh, the temperature moderate. The landscape continues its transformation, becoming greener each week, more lush, more alive. Animals that were gaunt during the dry season begin to put on weight, their coats improving, their energy increasing. Births happen across multiple species, the improved conditions triggering reproductive cycles, filling the savanna with young animals learning about a world that is, for the moment, generous. The leopard cubs are now 10 weeks old, their personalities fully developed, their bodies stronger, their confidence growing. They play fight constantly, their wrestling matches becoming more intense, more skilled, practicing the combat techniques they will need as adults. They stalk insects, birds, each other, anything that moves, their hunting instincts developing through constant practice. They climb rocks and low tree branches, their coordination improving, their fear of heights diminishing as their abilities increase. Their mother watches these developments with satisfaction, her cubs thriving, their chances of survival improving with each week. They grow stronger and more skilled. The transition from dry season to wet season is complete. The landscape has transformed from harsh to gentle, from brown to green, from scarcity to abundance. The rains have returned, the grass has grown, the water holes have filled. Life, which persisted through the difficult months through stubbornness and adaptation, now flourishes with enthusiasm. And on a hillside among boulders, 3 leopards navigate this new world together. A mother with the experience to guide them. 2 cubs with the eagerness to learn. A family unit that has survived the dry season and now faces the wet season's different challenges. But challenges faced together as a family, with growing strength and developing skills. The year continues its cycle. The leopards continue theirs. And in the African savanna, where seasons change and life adapts, the story goes on. The wet season settles over the savanna with the confidence of something that knows it will not be rushed. The rains come almost daily now, sometimes gentle showers, sometimes violent storms that turn the sky dark and send lightning crackling across the horizon. The landscape responds with growth that seems almost excessive. Grass shooting upward, trees bursting into leaf, vines creeping across anything that stays still long enough. The cubs are 12 weeks old, 3 months into their lives, at the age where independence begins to feel like a possibility rather than a distant fantasy. They are significantly larger now, their bodies losing the rounded clumsiness of early infancy, becoming leaner, longer, more recognizably leopard-shaped. Their spots have darkened and defined, their coats taking on the pattern that will identify them for the rest of their lives. The male is noticeably larger than his sister, a size difference that will become more pronounced as they mature. His personality remains bold, curious, occasionally reckless in ways that make his mother intervene more frequently than she would prefer. The female is smaller but faster, more agile, her movements efficient and calculated. She watches situations carefully before acting, a trait that serves her well in avoiding the various misadventures her brother stumbles into regularly. They still nurse occasionally, seeking comfort more than nutrition, their mother tolerating these sessions with decreasing patience as her milk production winds down. Most of their diet now consists of meat from her kills, and they are becoming more competent at feeding themselves. The male has learned to crack smaller bones, accessing marrow with the determination that characterizes his approach to most challenges. The female has developed a preference for organ meat, the softer tissues easier for her developing jaws to process. Both cubs accompany their mother on hunts now, though they are still spectators rather than participants. They follow at a distance, watching her techniques, learning through observation the skills that will eventually determine their survival. She stalks Impala through tall grass, and they see how she uses cover, how she tests wind direction, how she selects the weakest target from the herd. She ambushes a warthog at dawn, and they observe her patience, her timing, her explosive acceleration at the critical moment. She takes a young bushbuck near water, and they study her approach angles, her use of terrain, her adjustment to the prey's movements. Each hunt is a lesson, each kill a demonstration of technique that their brains are recording and processing and slowly incorporating into their own developing skill sets. The wet season brings challenges that were absent during the dry months. The abundant vegetation that provides excellent stalking cover also makes it harder to spot prey before it spots you. Grass that reaches above a leopard's shoulder obscures vision, turning every hunt into a navigation exercise where sound and scent matter more than sight. The dispersed prey means longer searches, more territory to cover, more energy expended in locating targets, and the rains themselves create difficulties, washing away scent trails, making surfaces slippery, generating noise that masks the sounds of approaching danger. But there are advantages too. The scattered prey means less competition at kill sites, fewer hyenas and lions concentrated around hunting grounds. The abundant water means prey animals are less vigilant, their desperation from the dry season replaced by a comfortable complacency. And the new growth provides countless young animals, inexperienced targets learning about the world, making mistakes that experienced predators capitalize on. The leopard adapts to these new conditions with the flexibility that has allowed her species to thrive across Africa. She hunts in different areas now, exploiting the dispersed herds, taking advantage of the naive young animals born during the rains. She kills more frequently, but eats less from each kill, her strategy shifting from caching large prey to consuming fresh meat regularly. The cubs benefit from this abundance, their growth accelerated by steady protein intake, their development rapid. At 14 weeks, they make their first serious attempt at hunting. Not under their mother's supervision, but independently, targeting a creature that seems manageable to their inexperienced assessment. A ground squirrel foraging near the den entrance, focused on seeds, unaware it is being observed by two young predators whose stalking skills are enthusiastic if not refined. The cubs coordinate without words, approaching from different angles, using the cover of rocks and low bushes. The male moves too quickly, his excitement overriding his patience, his approach loud enough to alert the squirrel. It bolts toward its burrow, but the female has positioned herself correctly, cutting off the escape route. She pounces, her timing nearly perfect, her paws pinning the squirrel before it can change direction. The male arrives a second later, and together they subdue their prey, their first independent kill achieved through teamwork and good fortune. They are immensely proud of this achievement, their body language broadcasting satisfaction. The squirrel is small, barely a mouthful for each cub, but the victory is significant. They have demonstrated competence, proven they can hunt, shown that the skills they have been learning actually work when applied. Their mother watches this from a distance, making no move to interfere or assist, allowing them their moment. She knows this is an important step, this transition from dependence to independence, this proof that her cubs might actually survive when they eventually leave her. The wet season progresses, the rains continuing their daily pattern, the landscape maintaining its green excess. Flowers bloom across the savanna, carpets of color that attract insects by the millions, creating feeding opportunities that ripple up the food chain. Birds that feed on insects thrive, their numbers swelling, their songs constant. Predators that eat birds hunt successfully, their populations benefiting from the abundance. Scavengers that follow predators find regular meals, their existence made easier by the general prosperity. Everything is connected, each piece dependent on the others, the wet season's abundance benefiting organisms across every level. The cubs are 16 weeks old, 4 months into their lives when they encounter their first serious threat. Their mother is hunting, having left them with strict instructions to remain near the den, instructions they have followed for approximately 10 minutes before boredom overrides obedience. They wander down the hillside, exploring territory beyond their usual range, investigating scents and sounds with the curiosity that makes young animals vulnerable. The male discovers a trail that smells interesting, probably some animal that passed recently, and follows it into a thicket of dense bush. His sister follows, both cubs now 50 meters from the den, outside the protected zone their mother has maintained through scent marking and regular patrols. They emerge from the thicket to find themselves facing a spotted hyena. The hyena is young, perhaps 2 years old, but still significantly larger than both cubs combined. It is as surprised by the encounter as they are, all three animals freezing, evaluating this unexpected situation. The cub's first instinct is to run, but the hyena is blocking the most direct path back to the den. Their second instinct is to look for their mother, who is absent, hunting somewhere in the territory, unaware her cubs are in danger. The hyena, recovering from its surprise, begins moving toward them with the kind of interest that suggests it is considering whether leopard cubs might be edible. The female cub hisses, her back arching, her tiny body attempting to project threat despite being completely outmatched. The male joins her, both cubs standing their ground, bluffing confidence they absolutely do not possess. The hyena pauses, assessing these small spotted creatures that smell like leopard but look manageable. It takes another step forward. And then their mother arrives, materializing from the vegetation like a spotted missile with extremely negative opinions about the current situation. She hits the hyena from the side, her claws extended, her jaws seeking purchase on its neck, her attack so sudden and violent that the hyena barely has time to react. They tumble together, a blur of spots and fur and teeth, the hyena yelping in surprise and pain. The leopard is smaller but faster, her rage making her dangerous beyond her size, her maternal instincts overriding any concern for her own safety. The hyena breaks free and flees, smart enough to recognize that this particular fight is not worth continuing. The leopard chases it for 20 meters, ensuring it understands that returning would be unwise, then races back to her cubs. She checks them quickly, sniffing for injuries, her rough tongue licking their faces, reassuring herself they are unharmed. Then she cuffs the male across the head, not hard enough to hurt, but firmly enough to communicate extreme displeasure with his decision-making. She herds both cubs back to the den at a pace that suggests this is not a leisurely stroll, but an emergency evacuation. They scramble up the hillside, their mother urging them forward with sounds that communicate urgency without requiring translation. They reach the den, and she practically pushes them inside, her body language making it clear that they are to remain there until she explicitly grants permission to leave. The cubs huddle together, shaken by the encounter, suddenly aware that the world beyond their mother's protection is considerably more dangerous than their limited experience suggested. The lesson is learned, the consequences of wandering understood, the importance of obedience reinforced through an experience that could have ended very differently. Their mother settles at the den entrance, her breathing still elevated from the sprint and the fight, her ears swiveling to track sounds, her entire body tense with alertness. She will not hunt today. She will remain here, guarding her cubs, ensuring no threats approach while they are vulnerable. The cubs can wait for their next meal. Their safety cannot. The wet season continues, the days blending together in patterns of rain and growth and hunting and rest. The cubs learn caution from their encounter with the hyena, their wandering restricted, their obedience improved. They still explore, but closer to the den, within sight of their mother, respecting boundaries they previously ignored. At 18 weeks, they are large enough to begin learning tree climbing in earnest. Their mother demonstrates, ascending a suitable acacia with the fluid grace that makes it look effortless. The cubs attempt to follow and discover that climbing is significantly harder than it appears. The male makes it 3 meters up before his back legs slip and he slides down the trunk with a lack of dignity that would be funny if anyone was laughing, which his sister definitely is not because she is a supportive sibling. She is definitely laughing. He tries again, adjusting his technique, using his claws more effectively, finding purchase on the bark. This time he makes it 5 meters up before fear overrides ambition and he freezes, clinging to the trunk, suddenly aware of how far the ground has become. His mother climbs down, positions herself below him, and makes sounds that encourage him to descend. He moves slowly, carefully, his claws gripping, his movements tentative, but he makes it down successfully. His sister tries next, and, being lighter and more cautious, She ascends further before stopping, her technique better, her confidence higher. She descends without assistance, her movements smooth, her skills developing rapidly. Over the following weeks, both cubs improve, their climbing abilities increasing until they can ascend to heights where their mother feels comfortable caching kills. This is an essential skill for leopards, this ability to use vertical space, to store food beyond the reach of ground-based competitors. The male eventually overcomes his initial fear, his strength compensating for his less refined technique. The female becomes proficient quickly, her agility and coordination making her a natural climber. Both cubs can now follow their mother into trees, can escape threats by going upward, can access the three-dimensional landscape that leopards utilize better than most predators. The wet season begins its gradual transition toward the next dry season, the daily rains becoming less frequent, the grass beginning to slow its frantic growth. The cubs are 5 months old, no longer tiny, no longer completely dependent, existing in that transitional space between infant and juvenile. They hunt small prey independently now, squirrels and birds, and the occasional young hare, their success rate improving with practice. They eat primarily from their mother's kills, but supplement with their own catches, their contribution to their diet growing as their skills develop. They play fight less frequently, their interactions becoming more serious, more focused on actual skill development rather than entertainment. The male practices his strength, wrestling with his sister, testing his growing power. The female practices her speed and precision, landing blows with increasing accuracy, her movements economical and effective. Both are preparing, though they do not consciously know it, for the eventual separation from their mother, for the independence that awaits them in the coming months. Their mother watches their development with the satisfaction that comes from successful parenting. Her cubs are thriving, growing strong, learning the skills they will need. They have survived the critical early months when mortality is highest, when disease and predators and accidents claim many young leopards. They have demonstrated competence in basic hunting, shown courage when threatened, learned caution after experiencing danger. They are not yet ready for independence, but they are moving toward it, growing into the leopards they will become. The year is progressing through its cycle, the seasons changing, the landscape transforming. The wet season that brought abundance is giving way to the next dry season, which will bring new challenges. But this dry season will be different from the last, because this time there are 3 leopards navigating it together. A mother with experience and skill, 2 cubs with growing competence and developing strength, a family that has bonded through months of shared experience, that has faced threats together, that has learned to function as a unit. The future is uncertain, as it always is in the wild. There will be challenges ahead, dangers to navigate, obstacles to overcome. But they have come this far together. They have survived when many do not. They have thrived when merely existing would have been achievement enough. And as the wet season gradually transitions toward dryness, as the grass begins to yellow and the water holes start their slow evaporation, 3 leopards on a hillside prepare for what comes next. Together, for now. Independent, eventually. But always carrying the lessons learned during these months when family meant survival, and survival meant family. The cycle continues. The leopards endure. And in the African savanna, the eternal dance of predator and prey, of season and adaptation, of life and survival goes on. The transition period between wet and dry seasons creates its own unique conditions, a time when neither abundance nor scarcity fully dominates. The rains become sporadic, falling heavily one week, absent the next, the pattern unpredictable enough to keep vegetation in a state of confused response. Grass that shot upward during the consistent rains now pauses, uncertain whether to continue growing or begin its slow fade toward dormancy. Water holes that filled completely during the wet season start their gradual shrinking, though they remain numerous enough that animals have options. Prey herds begin their slow migration toward permanent water sources, not with the desperate urgency of the deep dry season, but with the casual awareness that resources are shifting. The cubs are 20 weeks old, 5 months of life experience accumulated, their bodies lean and long, their movements increasingly graceful. They have lost the last traces of infant awkwardness, their coordination now approaching adult levels, their strength growing daily. The male weighs perhaps 15 kilograms, already showing the heavier build that will characterize him as an adult. His shoulders are broadening, his legs lengthening, his jaw developing the muscle that will eventually crack larger bones. The female is smaller, perhaps 12 kilograms, but faster and more agile, her body built for speed rather than power. Her climbing skills have surpassed her brothers, her ability to navigate trees now matching their mother's proficiency. Both cubs hunt regularly now, their success rate improving steadily. They take hares, guinea fowl, young vervet monkeys caught on the ground, the occasional dick that wanders too close to cover. These are not substantial meals, but they represent growing independence, proof that they can feed themselves when necessary. Their mother still provides the majority of their nutrition, her kills of impala and bushbuck feeding all 3 leopards. But the cub's contribution reduces the pressure on her, allows her to hunt slightly less frequently, conserves her energy for the challenges ahead. She is teaching them more advanced techniques now, skills beyond basic stalking and pouncing. How to identify the weakest member of a herd, the animal whose gait suggests injury or illness. How to use terrain features for ambush, positioning yourself downslope or behind obstacles that channel prey toward your location. How to estimate distances accurately, knowing when you are close enough to commit to the rush versus when you need more patience. How to adjust your strategy based on prey species, recognizing that impala require different approaches than warthogs or bushbuck. The lessons are constant, embedded in every hunt, every observation, every encounter with potential prey. The cubs absorb this knowledge through watching and imitating, their brains building patterns, their bodies developing muscle memory. They make mistakes regularly, their inexperience showing in poorly timed rushes or incorrect positioning. But they learn from these failures, their subsequent attempts, incorporating adjustments, their skills improving through iteration. One evening, the female cub makes her first substantial kill. A young impala, perhaps 6 months old, separated from its herd near a waterhole. She stalks it through tall grass, her approach textbook perfect, her movements controlled, her patience remarkable for a cat so young. At 10 meters, she begins her final rush, her acceleration explosive, her trajectory precise. The impala detects movement and attempts to flee, but the female cub has timed everything correctly. She brings it down with a tackle that would make her mother proud, her jaws finding the throat, her grip maintained through the impala's struggles. Within 2 minutes, it is over, her first significant kill, achieved through skill rather than luck. Her brother arrives moments later, drawn by the commotion, finding his sister standing over prey that is nearly as large as she is. She growls at his approach, her first instinct to defend her achievement, but then relaxes when she recognizes him. They feed together, both cubs working to open the carcass, their mother watching from nearby but not interfering. This is an important moment, this proof that her daughter can hunt effectively, that survival skills are transferring successfully. The male has not yet made a comparable kill, his size and strength developing slower than his sister's refined technique. But his turn will come, his approach simply different, relying more on power than precision. The cubs are developing their individual hunting styles, shaped by their physical differences and personality traits. The female hunts like their mother, patient and strategic, using stealth and perfect timing. The male is more aggressive, relying on speed and strength. His hunts, shorter stalks followed by explosive attacks. Both approaches work. Both have advantages depending on circumstances. Both will serve them well as adult leopards. The landscape continues its shift toward dryness, the process gradual but steady. Green grass begins showing yellow edges, the color change spreading like slow fire across the savanna. Some water holes dry completely, their beds cracking into geometric patterns, their existence evident only through the churned mud and scattered tracks around their perimeter. Others persist, their water levels dropping but still providing drinking opportunities for animals that have not yet migrated toward permanent sources. The prey concentrations increase slightly, not to dry season levels, but enough that hunting becomes easier than during the wet season's maximum dispersal. The leopard adjusts her territory usage, focusing more on areas near reliable water, where prey animals pass regularly on their way to drink. The cubs follow these adjustments, learning territorial management, understanding how resource distribution affects hunting strategy. At 6 months old, they are entering the final phase of dependence, the months where they will transition from mostly reliant to mostly independent. Their mother begins leaving them alone for longer periods, trusting their ability to avoid danger, to hunt small prey, to manage without constant supervision. She still returns regularly, still provides large kills, still intervenes when serious threats appear. But the gaps between her visits lengthen, the periods of independence extend, the process of separation beginning. The cubs handle this increasing independence with mixed success. Some days they thrive, hunting effectively, staying safe, demonstrating competence. Other days they struggle, going hungry when hunts fail, making poor decisions that their mother would have prevented. But struggle is part of learning. Failure teaches lessons that success cannot, and their survival skills develop through both triumph and difficulty. They encounter a young male leopard one afternoon, a transient passing through their territory, perhaps 2 years old, searching for his own space to claim. The cubs are alone, their mother hunting elsewhere, and the encounter is tense. The young male is not interested in harming them, merely asserting dominance, making clear that he is passing through and should not be challenged. The cubs understand this instinctively, their body language submissive, their postures non-threatening. They back away slowly, giving him space, avoiding confrontation that would benefit no one. The young male marks a tree and moves on, his message delivered, his passage noted but not contested. The cubs report this encounter to their mother when she returns, their scent carrying information about the intruder. She investigates the marked tree, reads the chemical signature left behind, determines that the young male has indeed moved on. She adds her own marks, reinforcing territorial boundaries, making clear that this space is occupied by a resident female with cubs. The message will deter most transients, though some will still test boundaries, will still investigate possibilities, will still need to be reminded that this territory is not available. The dry season establishes itself fully by the time the cubs are 7 months old. The sporadic rains have ceased entirely, the clouds that built hopefully each afternoon no longer forming. The sun dominates, its heat building daily, the temperature climbing back toward the extremes that characterized the previous dry season. Waterholes continue shrinking, their edges pulling back, the mud banks widening, the available water decreasing steadily. Animals concentrate around these diminishing resources, the pattern repeating, the cycle completing another rotation. But this dry season finds 3 leopards better prepared than the last one did. The mother has experience from multiple dry seasons, knowledge of water sources that persist longest, understanding of prey behavior during scarcity. The cubs have size and strength they lacked at birth, skills they have developed over months of practice, awareness of dangers they learned through experience. Together, they are more capable than any of them would be alone, a unit stronger than the sum of its parts. The mother hunts effectively, her skills honed by years of practice, her knowledge of territory allowing efficient hunting. The cubs contribute through their own small kills, reducing pressure on their mother, beginning to pull their weight in the family economy. They learn to cache kills in trees, to protect food from competitors, to return to feeding sites over multiple days. They practice defensive behaviors, learning to stand their ground against jackals, to retreat strategically from hyenas, to avoid confrontations with lions. They develop awareness of their environment, reading signs and tracks and scents, predicting animal movements, understanding the landscape's rhythms. Each day brings new lessons, new challenges, new opportunities to practice survival skills. The dry season that once seemed insurmountable to newborn cubs is now navigable terrain to 7-month-old juveniles with growing competence. They are not yet adults, not yet independent, not yet fully capable, but they are close, approaching readiness, developing into the leopards they will become. Their mother watches their progress with the satisfaction that comes from a job nearing completion. Her investment of time and energy and risk over these 7 months is producing results. 2 healthy cubs, growing strong, learning well, surviving. Not guaranteed to reach adulthood, the dangers are still numerous and the challenges real, but positioned for success, equipped with skills, prepared as well as any mother leopard can prepare her offspring. The year that began, with her solitary existence in the dry season, has transformed into a family unit navigating the same conditions together. The territory she defended alone is now shared space, hunting grounds for 3 instead of 1. The future that was uncertain when she gave birth is now clarified, at least for these cubs, at least for this moment. They have made it this far. They have survived when statistics suggested they might not. They have learned what they needed to learn, grown as they needed to grow, developed into leopards capable of independence. The separation is coming, the inevitable moment when mother and cubs will part ways. Not immediately, not today, but soon. The dry season will continue for weeks yet, providing more time together, more lessons to learn, more skills to refine. But the process has begun, the transition from dependence to independence underway. The cubs feel it instinctively, their behavior changing subtly, their attachment to their mother loosening fractionally. She feels it too, her maternal bonds adjusting, her focus shifting gradually from protection to preparation. They are becoming ready for the separation that nature demands. The leopard family moves through the dry season landscape together, 3 spotted shapes in dappled shade, a unit that will not exist forever, but exists now, sharing this time, this space, this experience. The cycle approaches completion. The year moves toward its end, and 3 leopards prepare for the changes that await them all. The dry season reaches its peak intensity as the cubs approach 8 months of age. The landscape has returned to the harsh conditions that defined the beginning of this year-long journey, the cycle completing its rotation. Waterholes shrink to muddy depressions. Prey concentrates around remaining resources. Competition intensifies among predators. But the leopard family navigates these conditions with competence, born from experience and preparation. The mother hunts with the efficiency of an apex predator in her prime, her skills refined by years of practice, her knowledge of territory comprehensive. The cubs contribute meaningfully now, their hunting success providing supplementary nutrition, reducing the burden on their mother. Together they manage, thriving where individuals might struggle, the family unit proving its value through shared effort. The female cub has become a proficient hunter, her technique approaching adult levels, her success rate impressive for her age. She takes young impala regularly, bushbuck occasionally, and once even brings down a small warthog through a combination of skill and fortunate positioning. Her brother's hunting style relies more on power, his approach direct rather than subtle, effective when it works but resulting in more failures than his sister's refined method. But he is learning, adjusting, developing his own approach that will serve him well as he gains adult size and strength. Both cubs are now capable of surviving independently for days at a time, though they still benefit from their mother's experience and larger kills. They cache their own prey in trees, defend kills from scavengers, navigate the territory with confidence. The transition to independence is nearly complete, the process that began months ago reaching its natural conclusion. Their mother recognizes this readiness, her behavior shifting subtly, her time with them decreasing, her distance increasing. She leaves them alone for longer periods, sometimes several days, trusting their ability to manage without her immediate presence. When she returns, she brings large kills occasionally, but not consistently, encouraging them to rely more on their own hunting. She still intervenes if serious danger threatens, her maternal instincts not yet fully released, but her protection is becoming less encompassing, more selective. The cubs sense the approaching separation without understanding it consciously. their attachment to their mother loosening naturally. They spend more time apart from each other as well, the sibling bond that was essential during infancy becoming less critical as independence approaches. The male ventures into different sections of territory, exploring areas that might become his own range when he eventually disperses. The female stays closer to familiar grounds, her territorial instincts already suggesting she might try to carve out space near her mother's range. This is normal leopard development, the siblings diverging as their individual paths become clear. At 9 months old, the cubs are large enough to be mistaken for small adults at a distance, their bodies lean and muscled, their movements fluid and confident. The male weighs perhaps 25 kilograms, his frame still filling out but already substantial. The female is smaller at 18 kilograms but fully coordinated, her agility compensating for size differences. Both have survived the critical first year that claims many leopard cubs. Both have developed skills necessary for independent survival. Their mother has fulfilled her biological imperative, raised 2 cubs through infancy and trained them for adulthood. The investment of time and energy and risk over these 9 months has produced results that justify the effort. 2 healthy juveniles, competent hunters, aware of dangers, prepared for independence. The final separation happens gradually, rather than through a single dramatic moment. The mother simply extends her absences, her returns becoming less frequent, her interactions with the cubs briefer. The cubs adjust to this increasing independence, their own hunting providing adequate nutrition, their territorial knowledge allowing them to navigate without guidance. One day, the mother leaves and does not return for a week. The cubs manage successfully, hunting together occasionally, separately more often, surviving through skills they have learned and practiced. When she does return, the interaction is brief, almost formal. The maternal bond loosened to the point where separation is natural rather than traumatic. She leads them to a kill she has made, allows them to feed, then departs again. The message is clear without requiring words or complex signals. You are ready. You can survive. Our time together is complete. The cubs remain in the area for several more weeks, their presence tolerated by their mother, but no longer actively supported. They are now competitors as much as offspring, adults in training occupying territory that technically belongs to their mother. The male begins ranging further, his instincts driving him to search for his own territory, to find space unclaimed by resident males. He will likely disperse completely within the next few months, traveling perhaps 20 or 30 kilometers, searching for vacant territory or opportunity to displace a weaker male. His journey will be dangerous, fraught with territorial disputes, confrontations with established males, navigation through unfamiliar landscapes. But he is equipped for this challenge, his size growing, his skills developed, his courage tested through months of learning. The female shows less urgency to disperse, her territorial instincts suggesting she might try to establish a range adjacent to her mother's, taking advantage of knowledge she has acquired during these 9 months. This is less common for young females, but not impossible, dependent on territory quality and mother's tolerance. She will test boundaries, explore possibilities, determine whether coexistence is feasible or dispersal necessary. Her path forward is uncertain, but her preparation is solid. her skills adequate for whatever challenges await. The year that began with a solitary leopard in the dry season completes its cycle with 3 independent leopards navigating the same conditions. A mother who has successfully raised cubs, demonstrated competence in both hunting and parenting, maintained her territory through another complete seasonal rotation. A son who has grown from helpless infant to capable juvenile, learned to hunt and fight and survive, prepared to claim his own place in the leopard world. A daughter who has developed skills that exceed her age, shown aptitude and intelligence, positioned herself for potential success in a difficult landscape. The dry season that tested them all has been survived. The challenges met, the obstacles overcome. The rains will return eventually. The cycle will continue. The landscape will transform again from brown to green and back to brown. But these 3 leopards have navigated one complete rotation, have experienced all 4 seasons, have demonstrated resilience and adaptation. The mother sits in the fork of an acacia tree one evening, surveying territory she has held for 3 years now, watching the sunset paint the sky in colors that signify another day survived. She is alone again, as leopards typically are, as she was before the cubs were born, as she will be until the next mating season brings temporary companionship. But she is not unchanged by the experience of motherhood, not unaffected by the months spent raising cubs. She has demonstrated skills beyond hunting, shown capabilities for protection and teaching, fulfilled biological imperatives that extend beyond individual survival. Her cubs carry her genetics forward, her knowledge encoded in their behaviors, her legacy extending through their lives. Somewhere in the territory, the female cub hunts near the waterhole, stalking an impala with technique learned through observation and practice. Her approach is patient, her positioning precise, her timing excellent. The impala falls to a perfect ambush, the kill clean and efficient, proof of competence that required 9 months to develop. She drags her prize to a nearby tree and begins the climb, her muscles working smoothly, her coordination excellent. She has become what her mother trained her to be, a capable leopard equipped for survival in a demanding environment. Further north, the male cub explores territory beyond his mother's range, investigating scent marks left by other leopards, testing boundaries, learning about the broader landscape. He is nervous but determined, his instincts driving him forward despite uncertainty. He will face challenges in the coming months, confrontations and dangers that will test everything he has learned. But he is ready as any 9-month-old leopard can be, equipped with size and skill and courage, developed through practice and experience. The African savanna continues its eternal rhythms, indifferent to individual stories, unconcerned with personal struggles. The sun rises and sets, the seasons change, the prey animals migrate and reproduce and die, the predators hunt and fight and survive or do not. The landscape persists through drought and flood, through fire and growth, through all the variations that nature inflicts on ecosystems. And within this grand indifference, individual lives matter to those living them, small dramas of survival and success playing out constantly. A leopard raises cubs successfully, an achievement worth celebrating even if the savanna does not celebrate. Cubs grow into juveniles capable of independence, a victory worth acknowledging even if acknowledgement comes only from within. A family unit forms, functions, dissolves naturally, the cycle completing as it has completed countless times before across millions of years of leopard evolution. This is not unique, not special in any cosmic sense, not different from what happens to leopards across Africa every year. But it is also entirely unique, completely special, absolutely different, because it happened to these specific leopards in this specific place during this specific year. Their story is both universal and individual, typical and exceptional, ordinary and remarkable. They survived when survival was not guaranteed. They thrived when merely existing would have been achievement enough. They navigated challenges that eliminated others less prepared or less fortunate. They demonstrated resilience and adaptation and the stubborn refusal to surrender that characterizes all successful predators. The year concludes not with dramatic endings, but with simple persistence, with 3 leopards continuing to exist in a landscape that makes existence difficult. The mother returns to her solitary routine, hunting and patrolling and defending territory, her life resuming patterns interrupted by motherhood. The daughter establishes her hunting grounds, refining skills, building confidence, preparing for eventual challenges of maintaining her own territory. The son continues his explorations, searching for opportunity, learning about the broader world, moving toward the confrontations that will determine his future. All 3 face uncertain futures, as all wild animals do, their survival dependent on skill and fortune and the countless small decisions made daily. But they face these futures equipped with experience gained through a year of challenges met and overcome. They are leopards, perfectly adapted through millions of years of evolution, magnificently equipped for their ecological role. They are survivors, demonstrated through successful navigation of a complete seasonal cycle. They are individuals shaped by specific experiences, carrying forward lessons learned through trial and success and failure. The story that began with a leopard in a tree with an impala, surrounded by frustrated hyenas, continues forward into an uncertain future. But it is a future these leopards have earned the right to face through competence demonstrated and challenges overcome. The dry season will eventually end, the rains will return, the landscape will transform once more. Prey will disperse, predators will adjust. The eternal dance of hunter and hunted will continue its ancient choreography. And 3 leopards, separated now but connected through shared experience, will navigate these changes with skills developed through a year spent learning what it means to be leopard. The mother in her established territory, defending what she has claimed, preparing perhaps for another breeding season. The daughter near familiar grounds, attempting to carve out her own space, building on knowledge inherited and acquired. The son in distant regions, testing himself against unknown challenges, driven by instincts toward independence and territory ownership. All 3 carrying forward the leopard line, participants in the species continuation, links in a chain extending backward through millions of years and forward through however many years the future allows. This is the story of one leopard and her cubs, 1 year and its seasons, one family's journey through challenges that test survival. But it is also the story of all leopards, all families, all creatures that persist through adaptation and resilience. It is the story of life itself, the stubborn refusal to surrender, the determination to continue despite obstacles. It is the story of the African savanna, where harsh conditions forge strong survivors, where only the capable persist. And it is ultimately uplifting, not because everything ends perfectly, but because survival itself is victory. 3 leopards exist today who did not exist 1 year ago. 2 cubs have grown into capable juveniles equipped for independence. 1 mother has successfully raised offspring, fulfilling purposes both biological and personal. The challenges were real, the dangers genuine, the possibility of failure ever present, but success was achieved through effort and skill and the determination to persist. And that success, simple continuation in a difficult world, is worth celebrating. The sun sets over the African savanna, painting the landscape in warm light that will fade to darkness. Stars emerge one by one, the same stars that have watched over leopards for countless generations. The night sounds begin, frogs and crickets and distant lion roars, the soundtrack of the wild. And somewhere in this vast landscape, 3 leopards settle into their sleeping places, bellies full, bodies tired, another day survived. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, new hunts, new obstacles to overcome. But tonight, in this moment, they have everything they need. They are alive, they are capable, they are leopards. And in a world that makes no guarantees, that offers no assurances, that provides only opportunities for those equipped to seize them, that is everything. The year completes its cycle. The leopards continue their journey. And the story goes on, as it always has, as it always will, as long as leopards persist in the African savanna, which, with skill and fortune, and the stubborn determination that characterizes their species, they will. They are leopards, and leopards endure. The weeks following separation bring adjustment for all 3 leopards, each navigating their new reality in different ways. The mother returns to routines interrupted by motherhood, her territory now exclusively hers again, her hunting focused solely on her own needs. The absence of cubs changes her movement patterns, her risk calculations, her daily rhythms. She can hunt more dangerous prey without concern for returning to dependent offspring. She can range further without worrying about cubs left vulnerable. She can rest when tired without needing to provide for others. It is simultaneously liberating and empty, freedom that carries hints of loss. But leopards do not dwell on such things, do not process emotions in ways that lead to prolonged grief. She simply adjusts, adapts, continues. Her body begins the hormonal shifts that will eventually bring her back into breeding condition, preparing for the next reproductive cycle, the continuation of the pattern. She is 5.5 years old now, in her prime, likely to produce several more litters before age diminishes her capabilities. The cubs she has raised represent her first successful reproduction, proof of competence, foundation for genetic legacy. Future cubs will benefit from experience gained during these 9 months, lessons learned about denning sites, and threat assessment and teaching techniques. She is a better mother now than she was at the beginning. Knowledge earned through practice, skills refined through application. The female cub establishes a routine in territory adjacent to her mother's range, testing boundaries, learning where tolerance ends and conflict begins. Her mother allows this proximity with apparent acceptance, neither encouraging nor preventing the overlap. They encounter each other occasionally, their interactions brief and formal, acknowledging shared history without resuming dependency. The daughter hunts successfully, her skills continuing to develop, her confidence growing with each achievement. She takes an adult impala one evening, a significant accomplishment for a 9-month-old leopard, proof that her training was thorough and effective. The impala is large, nearly matching her own weight, the kill demonstrating strength and technique in equal measure. She drags it to a suitable tree and successfully caches it, defending against hyenas that investigate, claiming her prize with the determination of a leopard who has earned her meal. This is adulthood in practice. Independence demonstrated, survival achieved through personal capability. She sleeps in the tree that night, guarding her kill, her belly full, her body satisfied. The stars above are the same stars that watched over her birth 9 months ago, the same stars that will watch over her cubs if she successfully navigates the challenges ahead. The male cub's journey is more difficult, his dispersal taking him through territories held by established males who do not welcome competition. He encounters a resident male in his 3rd week of wandering, a confrontation that tests everything he has learned about threat assessment and strategic retreat. The older male is significantly larger, scarred from previous battles, aggressive in defending territory he has held for 2 years. The young male recognizes immediately that fighting would be catastrophic, that survival requires acknowledging superior force. He submits, his body language communicating no challenge, his retreat rapid and complete. The older male allows this withdrawal without pursuit, satisfied that his dominance has been recognized and respected. The young male continues searching, learning through such encounters the reality of male leopard existence. Territory must be claimed through strength or opportunism, through displacing weaker males or finding vacant space. Neither option is easy. Both require persistence and fortune and willingness to endure setbacks. He travels further, exploring regions beyond his birth territory, gathering knowledge about the broader landscape. He learns which areas are heavily patrolled by resident males, which boundaries are less firmly defended, where opportunities might exist. He hunts successfully enough to maintain condition, his skills adequate for survival even in unfamiliar terrain. He grows stronger through this wandering, his body filling out, his experience expanding, his understanding of leopard society deepening. Eventually, perhaps in another 3 or 4 months, he will find his opportunity, claim his territory, establish himself as a resident male. Or he will not, and his story will end like many young male leopards who fail to secure territory, eliminated by rivals or predators or simple misfortune. But for now, he persists, driven by instincts older than any individual leopard, following patterns that have guided his species for millions of years. The dry season reaches its conclusion as the anniversary of the cycle's beginning approaches. Clouds build on the horizon, their formation signaling the approaching rains, the transition from scarcity to abundance. Animals watch these developments with the attention that survival requires, reading atmospheric signals, preparing for transformation. The first rains will arrive within days or weeks, their timing imprecise, but their inevitability certain. The landscape will transform again, brown fading to green, dormant vegetation erupting into growth, water holes refilling. Prey will disperse, predators will adjust, the eternal dance will continue with different choreography. The mother leopard watches clouds build one afternoon, her body responding to atmospheric pressure changes, her instincts recognizing approaching transition. She has navigated another complete dry season, survived its challenges, maintained her territory. She has raised cubs successfully, a major achievement for any leopard, proof of capability across multiple domains. She has demonstrated hunting prowess, territorial defense, threat assessment, teaching ability, maternal dedication. She has shown resilience through hardship, adaptation to changing conditions, persistence, despite obstacles. She is, by any measure, a successful leopard, equipped to continue thriving for years to come. The daughter pauses during an evening hunt, her attention drawn to clouds on the horizon, instincts she does not consciously understand telling her that change is approaching. She has survived her first 9 months, overcome challenges that eliminate many cubs, developed skills necessary for continued existence. She has successfully hunted adult prey, defended kills from scavengers, navigated territorial boundaries, demonstrated competence. She is positioned for success, though success is never guaranteed, dependent on continued skill and fortunate circumstances. Her future is uncertain, but her foundation is solid, her preparation thorough, her capabilities proven. The sun stands on a ridge in unfamiliar territory, watching storm clouds approach, his body lean from weeks of travel but his spirit unbroken. He has survived dispersal's dangerous phase, navigated through occupied territories, avoided fatal confrontations, maintained condition despite challenges. He has learned lessons that will serve him throughout his life, gained experience that textbook knowledge cannot provide, demonstrated courage required for male leopard existence. His journey continues, his territory still unclaimed, his establishment incomplete. But he persists, equipped with size and skill and determination inherited and developed. 3 leopards, separated by distance, but connected through shared experience, face the approaching transition from dry to wet season. Each has survived challenges specific to their situation. Each has demonstrated capability. Each has earned the right to continue. Their stories are individual, but also universal, typical of leopards, while unique to their specific circumstances. They represent success in a system where failure is common, survival in an environment designed to eliminate the weak and unlucky. They are living proof that preparation matters, that skill development pays dividends, that resilience in the face of hardship creates opportunity. The year that began with a solitary leopard in a tree concludes with 3 leopards positioned for continued survival. Not guaranteed survival, the future never promises such certainty, but probable survival based on demonstrated capability and acquired experience. The cycle that tested them has been completed, the seasons navigated, the challenges overcome. The rains will arrive soon, bringing abundance that will test them differently, creating new opportunities and obstacles. But they are ready, equipped through experience, prepared through practice, capable through development. This is what the year has built. 3 leopards better positioned for survival than they were 12 months ago. A mother with another successful reproductive cycle completed, her genetic legacy extended, her capabilities proven. A daughter with independence achieved, skills developed, foundation established for potential territorial establishment. A son with dispersal underway, experience gained, persistence demonstrated despite challenges encountered. All 3 alive when statistics suggested some might not be, thriving when merely surviving would have been acceptable. This is the ultimate victory in the wild, simple continuation against odds that favor elimination. The African savanna offers no sympathy, provides no assistance, grants no mercy to those who fail. But it rewards competence, favors capability, allows persistence for those equipped to endure. And these 3 leopards have proven their equipment, demonstrated their capability, shown they possess what survival requires. The sun sets on the anniversary of the cycle's beginning, painting the sky in colors that mirror the sunset 12 months ago. The same landscape, transformed and returned, cycling through variations that repeat annually. The same challenges presented differently, testing survivors in familiar yet novel ways. The same leopards, changed by experience, shaped by trials, developed through practice, but fundamentally, beautifully, importantly, the same in their core identity. They are leopards, and leopards persist. They are survivors, and survivors adapt. They are individuals who have faced challenges and emerged capable. The night descends, bringing its familiar sounds, its expected patterns, its reliable rhythms. Somewhere in the darkness, 3 leopards settle into sleep, their bodies tired from the day's efforts, their bellies fed from successful hunts, their positions secure for tonight at least. Tomorrow will bring new challenges, as tomorrow always does in the wild, but tomorrow will also bring new opportunities, new possibilities, new chances for success. And these leopards, equipped through a year of experience, prepared through months of training, tested through countless challenges, are ready for whatever comes. They have survived the complete cycle, navigated all 4 seasons, demonstrated capability across varying conditions. They have grown from 1 leopard to 3, from dependency to independence, from inexperience to competence. They have shown that persistence pays, that skill matters, that determination in the face of adversity creates outcomes. They have proven that leopards endure, that life persists, that success is possible, even when circumstances suggest otherwise. This is their story. 1 year in the lives of African leopards, 1 cycle through seasons and challenges and growth. But it is also a larger story about resilience and adaptation, about family and independence, about the stubborn refusal to surrender that characterizes all successful life. It is a story worth telling because it represents something fundamental about existence in difficult environments. That preparation matters, that skill development creates opportunity, that persistence through hardship builds capacity for success, that mothers who invest in offspring create advantages that extend beyond immediate survival, that cubs who learn thoroughly position themselves for independent achievement, that families that function effectively produce individuals capable of succeeding alone. These are lessons that extend beyond leopards, beyond the African savanna, beyond this specific year and these particular individuals. They are universal truths about survival and success, about what it takes to persist when persistence is difficult. And they are demonstrated beautifully, powerfully, convincingly through the story of 3 leopards who navigated a year of challenges and emerged capable. The rains arrive 3 days later, falling with the enthusiasm that marks the end of dry seasons, soaking the landscape, beginning transformation. 3 leopards experience this transition from different locations, their shared history now diverging into separate futures. But they carry forward what they learned together, apply skills developed through family experience, demonstrate capabilities built through shared challenges. They are equipped for what comes next, whatever that might be, prepared through a year that tested them thoroughly and found them capable. They are leopards who endure. They are survivors who persist. They are individuals who have earned their place in the continuing story of life in the African savanna. And that ultimately is everything.